Chapter 2029. Two demon venerables had died in battle, and both of them had died with grievances. Lu Yi quietly looked at the ball of fire that was quickly fading. Compared to the blood-colored fireworks that he had released with the 9 blood clones, Mo Xian's firework was not inferior. "Are you all right?" Su Yuqing looked at him with concern. Lu Ye's breath was a little weak, which was undoubtedly because he had consumed too much energy. "I'm fine. Go help them." Lu Yi patted the back of her hand. Su Yuqing nodded, turned around, and rushed to the nearest battle. Lu Yi directly sat down and took out a large number of spiritual jades from his storage ring. He urged the power of the talent tree to devour them and restore himself. In this battle, he first took the lead by detonating the 9 blood clones. Then, he destroyed the remaining 4 battleships of Zixian. Then he cooperated with Chen Xianhai to kill Bai Chen and helped Su Yuqing to kill Mo Xian. It could be said that he had paid a huge price and contributed a lot. He should not need to do anything else after this. He just needed to rest in peace. In terms of strength, Zixian had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. Under the premise that 2 demon venerables had died in battle, there was no chance for them to make a comeback. When he recovered, he had the time to investigate the battlefield where the Jade Conch Coalition army was. From his observation, the battlefield here was completely one-sided. If Zixian's army had battleships to support them, it might be difficult for the Jade Conch Coalition army to defeat them, especially the Sunshine-class battleship. It was not something that the cultivators of the Jade Conch Coalition army could contend against. However, after the battleship was destroyed, Zixian's cultivators could only abandon the ship and fight. There was not much difference in the number of both sides. Zixian's cultivators had more, but not by much. Even the number of cultivators on Yu Yao's level was equal. If there was no external interference, such a battle would most likely be a situation where both sides were evenly matched. However, the Jade Conch Coalition army was enchanted by the Soul Clan and supported by the Mermaid Clan's secret technique. Each of them could erupt with strength that was far beyond their normal level. On the other hand, the Song of the Tides constantly disturbed the minds of Zixian's cultivators, causing them to be distracted. Under this situation, the gap between them directly widened. As the 2 armies clashed, Yuluo's side had a strict formation, advancing and retreating with a sense of propriety. On the other hand, Zixian's demonic cultivators were in a state of chaos. After their initial defense line was broken through, they no longer had the strength to resist. The battle had only been going on for a short while, but by the time Lu Yuang arrived, Zixian's demonic cultivators had already lost more than 30% of their forces. The Jade Conch Alliance army was divided into several groups, and they roamed around the huge battlefield like huge dragons, constantly nibbling away at Zixian's forces. Some of the purple jade demonic cultivators had already begun to flee upon seeing that the situation was unfavorable, and this phenomenon was becoming more and more intense with the passage of time. However, under such circumstances, even if they wanted to flee, they still had to ask for permission from the Jade Conch Alliance. The outcome had been decided. Lu Yi retracted his gaze, no longer paying attention. On the battlefield under the sun, Zixuan's troops were defeated like a landslide. Similarly, the situation under the sun wasn't any better. Originally, the death of Bai Chen and Mo Xian had shocked many demon venerables. With Chen Xianhai and Su Yuqing's help, the situation that the demon venerables had worked so hard to maintain collapsed instantly. One by one, the auras of the sun were annihilated. In less than an hour, 6 of the 8 little demon venerables had fallen. Only 2 were still fighting like caged beasts. Under such circumstances, even if they wanted to escape, they had no chance. They obviously knew this, so they all looked defeated, and their eyes were filled with despair. Originally, they thought that there wouldn't be any accidents in this expedition, because Zixian had participated in such battles many times, and there had never been a precedent of failure. Victory after victory had forged Zixian's supreme prestige. No one could have imagined that Zixian would actually suffer such a great loss in this remote corner of the starry sky, suffering such great losses. This was something that hadn't happened for tens of thousands of years. After a few more breaths, Accompanied by a scream, one of the two remaining little demon venerables died in battle. The last one saw that there was no hope of escaping, so he directly took out his demon core and exploded it with a resolute expression. He undoubtedly wanted to drag someone down with him, but unfortunately his strength was limited. Even if he exploded his demon core, he didn't succeed. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but the one who was still alive was the dear demon venerable who had first appeared and fought with Lu Ye's precious blood clone. His strength was at the bottom of all the attacking demon venerables, and he was only at the middle stage of the Sunshine Realm. However, he was the luckiest and survived until the end. After the demon core exploded, the dear demon venerable's aura fell to the point where it was about to die. After all, the demon core was the essence of his life's cultivation. After exploding it, it was equivalent to destroying his cultivation. Although his physical strength was still at the middle stage of the Sunshine Realm, it was no longer considered Sunshine Realm. Moreover, with such a great injury, he wouldn't be able to live for long unless he was treated in time. Looking at the dear demon venerable, Wuxia sighed, "Why do you have to do this? We originally planned to leave one of the demon venerables alive and let him report back to Zixian. You are too stubborn." The dear demon venerable's face, which was extremely pale because of the explosion of his demon core, suddenly became incomparably shocked. He stared at Wuxia with wide eyes, filled with anger, and regret. If he had known that the humans had such a plan, why would he have exploded his demon core? It was better to live than to die. It was precisely because he felt that there was no hope of escaping that he decided to risk it all. The corner of his mouth twitched, as if he wanted to ask something, but he couldn't open his mouth. Wuxia understood what he meant. He nodded and sighed, "I didn't lie to you. That was our original plan. After all, the result of this battle needs to be announced by someone. Otherwise, this battle would be meaningless." Lu Ye's original plan was to beat Zixian until she was crippled and spread the name of Jade Conch. This was not the Wanxiang Sea, and there was no one watching the battle. No one would take the initiative to announce the result of this battle. Therefore, they were indeed prepared to leave Rizhao alive and let him escape back to Zixian to achieve their goal of spreading the news of this battle. At the very least, they wanted to let Zixian know that Jade Conch was not a place where they could come and go as they pleased. Who would have thought that the dear demon venerable would be so decisive? After hearing Wuqima's words, the dear demon venerable's face suddenly turned green and white. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire appearance quickly turned pale, and his chi was like a deflated balloon, slipping down at an alarming speed. He obviously couldn't accept the truth. Exploding his demon core had already caused him to lose a lot of his foundation. Now that his mind was shaken, even if he didn't want to die, there was no possibility of living. How sad! Wuqia looked at him quietly, then suddenly smiled at him. "I was lying to you. Do you really think you have a chance to live?" Venerable Deer Monster was confused and disoriented by him. He didn't know what to believe anymore. However, there was no need to think too much. His chi was quickly weakening to the extreme, and his vitality was dissipating. While Wuqia and the dear demon venerable were talking, the other Rizhao of the little human clan had already moved out and quickly rushed into the final battlefield. Zixian's army of demon venerables had suffered great losses. As the demon venerables fell one by one, they no longer had the will to fight and were fleeing in all directions. The Jade Conch alliance split up and chased after them, and even Lu Yi joined in. However, this kind of pursuit couldn't kill them all. However, with the addition of the Rizhao of the little human clan, the situation was different. In terms of speed, the Rizhao of the little human clan couldn't be compared to the average cultivator. Anyone who was caught was doomed. This kind of pursuit lasted for half a day. All the purple jade demon venerables who came to attack, regardless of whether they were Yu Yao or Xing Su, all of them fell. It could be said that in this battle, Zixian had been completely annihilated from top to bottom. Such a result was rarely seen in any battle in the starry skies where the strength and number of forces were similar. After the battle, it was naturally time to clean up the battlefield. All demon venerables had demon cores in their bodies, and demon cores were resources that could be used in many situations. Although many demon venerables had exploded their demon cores during the battle, most of them were still left behind. This was especially true for Rizhao-level demon cores. Each one was extremely precious. There were also the storage rings of the purple jade demon venerables. They always had some good stuff on them, and now they were all spoils of war for the Jade Conch Alliance. Other than that, there were only 2 slightly damaged Yu-Yao battleships left. The Purple Jade fleet consisted of 1 large ship and 4 smaller ones. Lu Yi had used the precious blood clone to self-detonate and destroyed 1 ship. Then he used the giant blade to cut through another ship. The largest ship's protection had been broken by the sword chi of the sword gourd, but it was also cut open by his blade. Only 2 ships were still intact. These were all resources that could be recovered. Outside Fangsuan Mountain, on the central battleship, the Mermaid Clan cultivators were resting and adjusting their breathing. Although they didn't directly participate in the battle, whether it was the use of their clan weapons or the chanting of the Song of the Tides, it was a huge burden on them. Their leader, Yan Miao, was pale. If she really wanted to compare, she had paid far more in this battle than if she had directly participated in the battle. This was because the Mermaid Clan's population was too small, and the range of their secret technique's blessing was too wide. There were too many people, and Yan Miao was the one who led the enhancement of the Rizhao. This short battle had almost emptied her Rizhao's foundation. Qin Yi stood beside Yan Miao, dizzily looking at the many cultivators who were busy around her. For a moment, she felt like she was in a dream. She had been entrusted by Lu Yi to stay in Fangsuan Mountain. Her main task was to look after the many medical cultivators. After all, when the battle started, there would definitely be injuries. When the time came, they would return to Fangsuan Mountain to heal. Of course, she understood that Lu Ye's arrangement was to not let her show her face in public. He didn't want Zixian to hold a grudge and implicate the 4 star systems. She was actually very worried about staying in Fangsuan Mountain because Zixian was very powerful. Even though she had seen many Rizhao of the dwarf clan before, she wasn't sure if Lu Ye's side was a match for them. During the battle, she and many medical cultivators waited in Fangsuan Mountain. In the end, they didn't even see a single one of them come back to heal. This gave Qin Yi an extremely bad feeling. In such a situation, either the battle hadn't broken out yet, so no one was injured, or the battle was so fierce that the injured cultivators didn't have time to come back to heal and were still fighting desperately. If it was the first case, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, if it was the second, the result would be terrible. End of chapter. Chapter 2030. Just as Qin Yi was waiting anxiously for half a day, a Xiaoru suddenly returned to Mount Fengsun. He called out to the waiting medical cultivators and informed them that the battle was over. They had won a great victory and the Zixian army had been completely annihilated. Qin Yi was in disbelief. She knew the strength of Zixian's army, which was why she had rushed to Jade Conch. Such a force was not something an ordinary galaxy could contend with. Even if Jade Conch's foundation was not bad and they had the capital to contend with Zixian, they would have to pay a huge price to defeat the other party. But how long had it been? Jade Conch had won, and it was a great victory. On the contrary, the Zixian army that she could only look up to had been completely annihilated. A complete annihilation. This undoubtedly meant that no one from the Zixian army had escaped. What price would Jade Conch have to pay for such a great victory? Qin Yi thought that Jade Conch would also suffer great losses, but there were not many injured cultivators on their side, not to mention those who died in battle. On the chaotic battlefield, corpses of Zixian Yao cultivators were everywhere. Some maintained their human forms before they died, while others returned to their original forms. All of them were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, looking terrifying. After the battle, the Jade Conch cultivators gathered in groups of 3 to 5, happily collecting the spoils of war. In Qin Yi's eyes, they did not look like they had just fought a war, but a group of people who were going to the market. All kinds of bizarre things made Qin Yi dizzy, feeling that the world was strange. The battle did not take too long, but cleaning up the battlefield took a lot of effort. 3 days later, the dust finally settled. Everything that should be collected had been collected, including the battleships that were destroyed by Lu Yi. They were all pulled into Mount Fangsuan by the cultivators. Although the battleships were damaged, there were still many places where they could be used, especially the Rainbow-class battleship. If they could find a suitable person to repair it, it might still have a chance to see the light of day again. The Jade Conch army gathered in Mount Fengsuan to celebrate, while Lu Yi drove Mount Fengsuan back the way he came. A few days later, Mount Fengsuan was resettled near Jiuzhou. After the celebration, Su Yuan found Lu Yi and bid him farewell. The soul race came out this time mainly because of Lu Ye's request. If not for Lu Yi, the soul race would not have rashly participated in the battle in the starry sky. Now that the dust of the battle had settled, the soul race had no intention of staying outside for long. Naturally, they had to return to their ancestral land. Lu Yi enthusiastically urged him to stay. This time, the battle against Zixian had gone so smoothly because of the spiritlings. Under the influence of the spiritlings, the strength of the Jade Conch Alliance army, from Xingqiu to Rizhao, had increased greatly. This was why they had been able to win so easily. Otherwise, with the support of the merfolk's secret technique, the Jade Conch Alliance would only be able to gain the upper hand at most. Large numbers of casualties would be unavoidable. Su Yuan tactfully declined. The reason why the Spiritas were unwilling to show themselves outside was mainly because they did not like the outside environment. Just like how fish needed to live in the water, the ancestral land was the most suitable place for the Spiritas to live. Although it wasn't as exaggerated as a fish out of water in the outside world, it was still uncomfortable. Only by attaching one's soul to a living being would this discomfort be eliminated. But unless they were extremely close, who would be willing to be possessed by the soul race? If that was the case, then there wouldn't be any secrets left. You're now in the Jin Rizhao dynasty. You should finish your chores and come to the ancestral land. Cultivating the soul-subduing secret technique in the ancestral land has a unique advantage, advised Su Yuan. Yes, replied Lu Yi respectfully. Every Rizhao dynasty cultivator had their own soul-subduing secret technique. This was because once one reached this realm, it was the cultivation of a god. The soul-subduing secret technique was the most important part of this cultivation. This secret technique was extremely important to the Rizhao dynasty and would not be used lightly. But once it was used, it would be a battle of life and death. Before Bai Chen died, he had used his own soul-subduing secret technique in a vain attempt to drag Lu Yi down with him. In the end, he was stopped by Su Yuan. Although Su Yuan had blocked it easily, that was because he was a Spiritus. No other race could compare to his cultivation of the soul. In fact, if Su Yuan hadn't acted, even Chen Xianhai wouldn't have been able to completely block the soul-subduing secret technique. If it had affected Lu Yi, the consequences would have been dire. Even if Su Yuan hadn't mentioned it, Lu Yi was prepared. In this world, there was no place more suitable for cultivating the soul-subduing secret technique than the ancestral land of the Spiritas. He and the sacred beast will stay behind. Take care of them, instructed Su Yuan. It was rare to have a chance to spend time with Lu Yi, so Yi naturally didn't want to miss it. She didn't plan to return to the ancestral land for the time being and stayed behind with Hupo. Don't worry, elder. Lu Yi nodded. To him, Yi and Hupo were family. Of course, he wouldn't let anything happen to them. Moreover, in Mount Minuscule, there was nothing that could threaten them. The Spiritas left under Su Yuan's lead. Lu Yi sent them off. A moment later, the Rizhao dynasty from the south and west of Mount Minuscule also came to bid farewell. This time, they had come to reinforce Lu Yi. Each of them only had one Rizhao to guard Mount Fengsuan. Many of Yu Yao's subordinates had been transferred over as well. Now that the battle was over, they naturally had to rush back to prevent the two divisions from encountering any mishaps on their way back. They were all family, and their relationship was even closer than with the Spiritas. Naturally, Lu Yi didn't need to be too courteous with them. In front of the formation, the humanoid race's Rizhao dynasty gathered. Lu Yi said, "We were going to talk about this in 2 days, but since the South and West senior brothers and sisters are leaving, we can discuss it first." Wu Ji, the leader of the South, looked at Lu Yi. "Junior brother Lu, what are you talking about?" Lu Yi said, "Senior brothers and sisters, you should know about the Wanxiang Sea. The current situation is that the Three-World Island controls the Wanxiang Sea. We have also reached some agreements with the major galaxies, so there shouldn't be any problems. In the previous battle, 3 top-tier spiritual islands fell into our hands. Now, I've handed the Wanxiang Island to Rizhao from the Wanxiang Galaxy to manage. He will rebuild the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce and share the profits. There are still Purple Jade Island and Winged Sky Island left. These 2 are both top-tier spiritual islands. What I mean is, does the humanoid race want one or both? Hearing this, the Rizhao dynasty raised their eyebrows. Top-tier spiritual islands. Every top-tier spiritual island in the Wanxiang Sea was a treasure trove. Usually, only the top forces could occupy them. Moreover, there was only a small number of them. Since ancient times, their numbers hadn't changed much. Even when the Wanxiang Galaxy was in charge of the Wanxiang Sea, they only occupied one Wanxiang Island. If not for the fact that top-tier spiritual islands were so precious, the Tianyan realm wouldn't have coveted Wushuang Island. In the end, they didn't reap any benefits and even got into trouble. Now that the 3-world island was in charge, they controlled 3 spiritual islands. Including the 3-world island, they had 4. How many top-tier spiritual islands were there in the entire Wanxiang Sea? Occupying 4 of them was an exaggeration. The Rizhao dynasty from the humanoid race looked at each other. They could see the desire in each other's eyes. It wasn't that they didn't know about the convenience of the Wanxiang Sea. In the past, the 3 tribes of the humanoid race were divided and couldn't merge. Moreover, they wandered around and didn't have the chance to touch the Wanxiang Sea. Now it was different. Lu Yi had found the core of Mount Fengzhen. The eastern region had already merged with the core. The southern region would arrive soon. Once the western region merged, Mount Fengzhen would be complete. They finally didn't have to wander around anymore. The 3-world island controlled the Wanxiang Sea and had extra top-tier spiritual islands. It could be said that the humanoid race was in a favorable position. If they could occupy a top-tier spiritual island in the Wanxiang Sea, it would be of great benefit to the development of the humanoid race. Their spiritual talismans had always been in short supply. Just this business alone would ensure that the humanoid race wouldn't have to worry about resources in the future. As the leader of the humanoid race, Rizhao dynasty naturally had to consider the future of his race. This is feasible. I have no objections. Wu Ji nodded. On the western side, Zhang Kuan also nodded. I have no objections either. What about Brother Chen? He looked at Chen Xianhai. Chen Xianhai said, that's good too. Our race will occupy a top-tier spiritual island in the Wanxiang Sea. Then, we'll have a place to stay in the Wanxiang Sea. Zi Xian suffered such a great loss this time. She definitely won't let it go. Yu Luo and the others might not dare to come again. They might even go to the Wanxiang Sea to cause trouble. When that time comes, we can send Rizhao dynasty to hold the fort, just in case. Lu Yi blinked. The people of Fengzhen Mountain didn't know about the 3 treasures Rui money yet. If they did, they would definitely understand that compared to Yu Luo, the Wanxiang Sea was a place they didn't dare to go. To Zi Xian, that place was truly a tiger's den. Then it's settled. Zi Xian or Winged Sky Island will be reserved for you. Zi Xian it is. Chen Xianhai decided. This time, Demon Venerable Zi Xian basically died at the hands of Rizhao dynasty of the humanoid race. Since there was already enmity, there was no need to fear occupying the original Zi Xian Island. Lu Yi naturally had no objections. After a short while, he used his position as the Lord of Fengzhen Mountain to activate the formation and send away the humanoid race from the south and west. It won't take long for the south to merge with us. When that time comes, Fengzhen Mountain will become much stronger. I'm really looking forward to it. Wu Qima suddenly said. Lu Yi was also looking forward to it because it wasn't just the south that came. There was also the blood extinction world that came with them. This world was formed by one of the blood progenitor's arms. When it merged with the blood extinction world, who knew what would happen? Junior brother Lu, of the demon venerables Zi Xian we encountered this time, the 8 lesser demon venerables are probably dead. However, you have to be careful of the 2 greater demon venerables in the future, Chen Xianhai said. Lu Yi was stunned. Senior brother, do you mean, the one who came this time wasn't the real one? Chen Xianhai shook his head. I'm not sure. Avatars are different from ordinary avatars, so even I can't tell if it's the real one or not. Moreover, even if Bai Chen and Mo Xian came with their real bodies, there must be avatars alive. They suffered great losses in this battle, but Yu Luo's background was also exposed. Lu Yi smiled. That's fine. If we can make Zi Xian suffer once, we can do it again. They suffered great losses in this battle and won't dare to come again in the short term. As long as you know. Chen Xianhai nodded. End of chapter. Chapter 2031. The liveliness in Fangsuan Mountain gradually dissipated with the departure of the Soul clan and the southern and western human clans. The cultivators of the Qingli Dao world and the Jade Conch world were not in a hurry to return. Many of the constellations called their friends to the 9 states. The existence of the 9 states Azura field was no longer a secret. Long ago, there were cultivators from the 2 worlds who received the news and came to the 9 states to participate in the training of the Azura field. But that was only a minority. Most of them had only heard of the magic of the Azura field and had never experienced it personally. This was a rare opportunity. Naturally, they had to enter and experience it. After all, the training in the Azura field was greatly beneficial to the growth of cultivators. After Lu Yi heard the news, he quickly contacted Little Nine. So many constellations, how is the burden of the Azura field? The maintenance of the Azura field required consumption. A portion of the consumption was the foundation of the 9 provinces, but more of it was the spirit jades. The Azura field was a type of treasure. Little Nine could borrow the power of the spirit jades to activate its might, creating scenes that could allow cultivators to train. The stronger the cultivator who entered, the greater the consumption. For the current 9 states, there was almost no consumption for cultivators below the divine sea level to train. Only constellations had such consumption. In the past, there were not many constellations in the 9 states, so the consumption was naturally not much. But now, there were thousands of constellations in the 9 states. This number was not small. It's okay. Little Nine immediately replied. Now, the spiritual energy in the starry sky is much more active than before. The resources absorbed by the 9 states from the starry sky are enough to maintain the consumption. And this activity is getting more and more intense. In another 10 or 20 years, there may be no problem for Yueyao to come in and train. Getting more and more intense? Lu Yi was a little stunned. He had not noticed this kind of thing because every time he returned to the 9 provinces, he would not stay for too long. He was not like Little Nine. The 9 provinces lay in this place, and any changes in the spiritual energy in the nearby starry sky could not escape its observation. Yes, it has been like this since a few years ago. Do you know the reason? Lu Yi asked. Although it was a good thing for the 9 states that the spiritual energy in the starry sky had become more active, the improvement of the resources of the 9 states would increase. This was because the resources of any realm were increased by devouring and fusing the spiritual energy in the starry sky. This was an extremely long process. But everything had a reason. Lu Yi felt that it was best to figure out the source of this change. I'm not sure. How could Little Nine know the reason? It was born from the combination of the source of 9 regions and the tool spirit of the Tianji disc. It knew everything that happened in 9 regions like the back of its hand, but it had no way to investigate anything that happened outside of 9 regions. Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, "Observe more. If there's anything wrong, remember to tell me as soon as possible." Got it. Little Nine agreed and suddenly thought of something. By the way, Lu Yi, is there a problem with the Qingli Dao realm? The constellations born in that realm can't be promoted to Yueyao? There is indeed such a problem. Lu Yi nodded. He was not surprised that Little Nine knew about this. Previously, many cultivators from the Qingli Dao world had come to the 9 states to gain experience in the Shura field. Perhaps Little Nine had overheard some people chatting. Do you have a solution? Little Nine chuckled. I do have an idea. Tell me about it. Little Nine then mumbled something to Lu Yi. Lu Yi was dumbfounded as he listened. That works too? Of course. This way, it will be good for the 9 states, and the problem of the Qinglidao world will be solved. Don't you always talk about saving the country in a roundabout way? This is not a bad idea. There is a way. Lu Yi admitted that little Nine was right, but this idea was somewhat ridiculous. He thought for a moment and said, I'll talk to old Tang and Wuzhuo when I have time. Among the 3 realms in the galaxy, the 9 states was originally at the bottom. However, with Lu Ye's promotion to Sunshine and the placement of Fangsuan Mountain, the Qinglidao world was now the most pitiful. There were only 2 Yu Yao in the entire realm, and one of them, Tang Jun, had exhausted his potential. It was impossible to predict how far Wu Zhuo could go. This time, Tang Jun had also returned to Jade Conch. It was his first time returning since he was stranded in the island of all manifestations. Now, these 2, the Yu Yao of Jade Conch, Wan Xiaoa, and the Mermaid Clan were all staying in Fangsuan Mountain. While Lu Yi was talking to Little Nine, a few figures flew over and landed in front of him. They were the blood warriors under his command, the Xiang Yin Xianyu sisters, Ding Bei Feng, and Ma Shangxi, who had returned with Lu Yi from the island of all manifestations. In the previous battle with Zi Xian, these 4 blood warriors had contributed greatly. The blood race played a great role in such a battlefield. The 4 of them joined forces and spread a huge sea of blood, destroying a large number of Zi Xian's Yao cultivators. It could be said that they had made outstanding contributions. The blood warriors saluted in unison. What is it? Lu Yi turned to look at them. Xiang Yin Xianyu and Ding Bei Feng did not speak. Only Ma Shangxi stammered, Sir, I have a request. I hope Sir will grant it. As soon as he spoke, Lu Yi knew what he wanted. He waved his hand and said, If you want to go, then go. You don't have to go to the island of all manifestations anymore. What he wanted was nothing more than to enter the blood refinement realm to cultivate. Back then, when Lu Yi first brought him to the 9 states, he had already mentioned this matter. However, Lu Yi did not agree at that time because he had just ascended to Yu Yao. If Ma Shangxi were to ascend to Sunshine, there might be some unpredictable consequences. Now that Lu Yi had broken through to the Sunshine realm, of course, he hoped that the strength of his blood warriors would be as strong as possible. The 4 blood warriors were all at the late Moon Jade realm, with Ma Shangxi's background being the strongest. If he could break through to the Sunshine realm, he would undoubtedly play a greater role in the future. Ma Shangxi was stunned for a moment before he was overjoyed and bowed deeply. Many thanks, sir. He had heard that Xiang Yin Xianyu and the others had been cultivating in the blood refining realm all this time. When he heard the news at that time, his heart was filled with bitterness. He was obviously Lu Ye's first blood warrior, and he was the one who, fortunately, Lu Yi did not refuse this time. He left gratefully. Glancing in the direction the blood warriors left, Lu Yi withdrew his gaze. Under his perception, the 9 regions was more lively than ever before. This time, many cultivators returned to their homeland, so of course, there were many places to reminisce and make arrangements. Not to mention other places, just the Blue Blood sect, with the return of the sect master and the others, the entire sect was celebrating as if it was the new year. This was just a microcosm of the current situation in the 9 regions. All the major sects were the same. Lu Ye's heart was at ease. In the past, when the insect path was not accessible, no matter how famous the 3-world island was in the 10,000 Elephant Sea and how many benefits it obtained, it still felt like a tree without roots and water without a source. Now it was different. The insect path was connected to the 10,000 Elephant Sea and the Jade Conch Galaxy, so it was no longer as troublesome for cultivators to travel between the 2 places. The Jade Conch Galaxy also had the closest connection to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, so the 3-world island could be considered to have its own roots. If one day something happened in the 10,000 Elephant Sea, everyone could retreat to the Jade Conch Galaxy. Thinking back to when he and Old Tang were stranded in the 10,000 Elephant Sea, they had nowhere to go and were all alone. Now, they controlled the entire 10,000 Elephant Sea, like a carp that leaped over the Dragon's Gate, and their status had undergone a tremendous change. Junior brother Lu, you're here. A voice suddenly sounded. Lu Yi turned his head and saw a woman's figure landing. He nodded slightly. Senior sister Qin, senior sister is, Qin Yi smiled. I'm leaving. I came to say goodbye to you. She had witnessed a great show this time and was greatly shocked. She was moved by the unity of the Jade Conch Galaxy cultivators and was even more shocked by Lu Ye's connections and methods. This great battle involved the human race, the demon race, the humanoid race, the soul race, the mermaid race, the flower race, the wood spirit race, the spore race. This was rare anywhere. Lu Yi was shocked. You're going back now? Qin raised her hand and smoothed her hair that was messed up by the wind. I have to go back eventually. Lu Yi nodded and did not urge her to stay. Then I'll send you off. Thank you very much. He naturally knew the purpose of Qin Yi's visit this time. In the face of a colossus like Zixian, that was already the limit of what Qin Yi could do, which was also the limit of the 4 galaxies. They were powerless to do anything more, so of course Lu Yi had to thank her. Qin Yi waved her hand. Junior brother, you don't have to thank me for not being of any help. She paused and said, however, I have a request. When she said this, she could not help but blush with shame. She did not help at all, and now she had to ask for help. However, this matter was related to the 4 Corners Galaxy, so she had to ask. Senior sister, are you talking about the insect path? Lu Yi knew that in the past, if the people from the 4 Corners Galaxy wanted to go to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, they had to travel for a long time. They had to follow the route he took back then and finally use the insect path in the Long Cloud Galaxy to enter the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Compared to using the Jade Conch Galaxy, such a route would undoubtedly take more time and effort. Qin Yi already knew about the insect path, so she naturally had her own ideas. That's right. Qin Yi nodded. I would like to ask Junior Brother to allow the cultivators from the 4 Corners Galaxy to use your insect path to enter the 10,000 Elephant Sea in the future. This way, they would save at least half the time. Moreover, the Long Cloud Galaxy was not very friendly to them. Every time they wanted to use the insect path, they had to pay a sum of spiritual jade as a toll. However, if they wanted to use the Jade Conch Galaxy, they would not have to pay this extra fee. That's not a problem. Lu Yi agreed immediately. The insect path is not stable enough now. I'll arrange for the U-Jade-class warships to be on standby there and take cultivators back and forth. When the insect path gradually stabilizes in the future, it will be easier to pass through. Currently, there were 3 U-Jade-class warships that could be used in the 9 states. 1 was brought back from the 10,000 Elephant Sea, 2 were seized, and a few warships that Lu Yi destroyed needed to be repaired. Lu Yi planned to use 2 of them and place them at the 2 ends of the insect path. Thank you, Junior Brother. Qin Yi bowed gracefully. Although she knew that Lu Yi would not refuse, Qin Yi was still very grateful that he agreed so readily. Her senior brothers from the 4 Corners Galaxy would never have imagined that the Jade Conch Galaxy had such a terrifying foundation. The Zixian army that they thought was unstoppable was completely wiped out by the Jade Conch Galaxy in a single battle. Qin Yi could almost imagine their shocked expressions when she returned and told them what had happened here. That would be interesting. End of chapter. Chapter 2032. Qin Yi left. In the end, Lu Yi didn't send her off. She was going back to the 4 Directions Galaxy. It was a long journey, so where could he send her off? Moreover, Lu Yi had agreed to let the 4 Directions Galaxy pass through, so they would be in close contact in the future. Lu Ye's figure flickered, and he left. A moment later, he returned to the Jade Blood Sect. He immediately sensed his return and rushed over with Hoop. She held onto his arm, as if she didn't want to be separated from him ever again. After chatting with Yi for a while, he went to look for the busy second senior sister. After a long time, Lu Yi finally reacted. Where are Sect Master and Master? He actually didn't see the old couple's figures. Second senior sister smiled and said, the 2 of them suddenly sensed something and went into seclusion. Lu Ye's expression became serious. Are they going to break through to the Yu Yao realm? Shui Yuan nodded. That should be it. Moreover, it's not just the 2 of them. According to the news I received, after this battle, many of the older generation are showing signs of breaking through. Soon, many new Yu Yao will appear in the 9 states. Calculating the time, it was about time for these older cultivators to break through. One had to know that they were all leading figures of various eras in the 9 states. Whether it was talent or talent, they were all top-notch. After Lu Yi entered the 10,000 Elephant Sea, the cultivation environment was excellent, and there was no lack of resources. It was only natural that they would break through to the constellation realm. Although the battle with Zi Xian wasn't difficult, before the battle began, everyone had disregarded life and death. They all carried a sense of determination. After a great victory, they returned to their homeland after a long time, and their hearts settled down peacefully. Such a change in state of mind undoubtedly had the effect of breaking through their shackles. This was why so many of the older cultivators had gone into seclusion. Not only the older cultivators, but the younger cultivators like Feng Wujiang and Li Baxian also entered seclusion one after another. It was indeed as Shui Yuan said. Soon, many new Yuyao would appear in the 9 states. Senior sister should be almost there, right? Lu Yi asked. Shui Yuan smiled and said, I can still suppress it a little. That's good. Lu Yi nodded. He looked toward the sect master's residence and sighed. What a pity. In the past, he had told the cultivators of the 3-world island that if there were signs of a breakthrough to the Yuyao realm, they should inform him in advance. This was because there would be great benefits if they could break through to the Yuyao realm in the Constellation Hall. Back then, Bai Lu and the other Mermaid Clan cultivators had helped Yuyao ascend to the Constellation Hall. At that time, he didn't know much about Yuyao. He only knew that there were benefits, but he didn't know what those benefits were. Now, he understood that if Yuyao was promoted in the Constellation Hall, the quality of her source would be slightly higher. This was undoubtedly beneficial to her future cultivation. Unfortunately, ascension was not something that could be controlled by humans. When one reached a critical point, forcefully suppressing one's cultivation base would not only bring no benefits, it would even cause problems. Furthermore, he was not in the 10,000 Elephant Sea most of the time, so over the years, many cultivators from the Jade Conch realm had managed to ascend to Yuyao. It was the same this time. The sect leader and the others felt that the time had come, so they might as well let nature take its course. Shui Yuan's situation was a little different. She had spent most of her time concocting pills, so her cultivation progress was slightly slower. Naturally, she could suppress it slightly. However, even if the sect leader and the others were to ascend in the 9 states, it wouldn't be much of a problem. At most, they wouldn't be able to obtain a better source, so it wouldn't affect their foundations. Furthermore, ascending in their homeland could deepen the connection between them and their homeland. In the future, if they were to compete with others in their homeland, they would have a certain degree of advantage. Moreover, if the 9 states could ascend to a top-grade realm in the future, the sect leader and the others would also gain more benefits. Lu Yi didn't think too much about it. He looked at Shui Yuan and said, It's been a long time since I tasted senior sister's cooking. Back when Lu Ye's cultivation hadn't been very high, Shui Yuan had done everything she could to help Lu Yi recuperate. Every time she returned, she would prepare a delicious and rich medicinal cuisine. Now that he thought about it, he really missed it. Wait here. Shui Yuan pursed her lips into a smile, then turned around and left. I'll go help. Yi bounced up and down, following Shui Yuan's footsteps. Lu Yi stayed in the Jade Blood sect for a few days, and he truly enjoyed these days. A few days later, Tang Jun and Wu Zhuo, who had been staying in the Fengsuan Mountain, received his summons and rushed to the Jade Blood sect. On the Jade Bamboo Peak, Lu Yi received the 2 of them and served them tea. Lao Tang sighed, the 9 heavens, no, the 9 prefectures are so vast and rich in resources. In comparison, if the 9 prefectures were a bustling city, then the Qingli Daoist world was a remote mountain village. The appearance and overall standard of the cultivation world couldn't be compared at all. Lao Tang changed the topic and asked, It said that the 9 prefectures was a top-notch world 10,000 years ago. Is this true? He obviously heard some rumors from somewhere. That was 10,000 years ago. Who knows? Lu Yi smiled. If you think the 9 prefectures are good, why don't you move here and retire? Tang Jun curled his lips. I'm willing, but are you willing? Lu Yi thought for a while and nodded. The Wanxiang Sea can't do without you. Ever since the rise of the 3-world island, Tang Jun had been the chief of external affairs of the three-world island. He was in contact with all kinds of people. Without him, the three-world island would have a lot of inconveniences. That's why I said that I was born to be busy. Tang Jun picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. He looked at Lu Yi with a bitter face. You're not kind, kid. I was fooled by you. What do you mean? Lu Yi was surprised. Tang Jun carefully recounted. When this old man first met you, you said you were called Li Tai Bai. It was a long time later that this old man found out that this name was fake. It was only recently that this old man found out that not only was your name fake, your background was also fake. Lu Yi was speechless. Why bring up the past? Tang Jun didn't let it go. No, kid, you have to tell me clearly which part of you is real? Lu Yi sighed. My respect for you is real. Tang Jun was speechless. After a while, he said sullenly, Kid, you really rely on your mouth. I deserve to be fooled by you. Wuxia looked at them bickering and smiled without saying anything. Tell me, why did you summon us here? Tang Jun asked. Lu Yi thought about it and finally decided to say it directly, integration of the world. Tang Jun was stunned. He was knowledgeable, but he didn't understand at all. He asked in confusion, What do you mean? Wuxia was also puzzled. Lu Yi said, It's very simple. Integrate the Qing Li Dao world into the 9 states. From then on, there will be no more Qing Li Dao world. The 2 worlds will become one. Tang Jun and Wuxia were dumbfounded. Old Tang asked, Can this be done? Lu Yi nodded. Since I said so, it can definitely be done. However, if the 2 of you agree to this, it will require a lot of preparation work, and this can't be done overnight. Can it really be done? Tang Jun asked with uncertainty. Lu Yi answered seriously. Since Little Jiao suggested this method was feasible. He continued, Of course, I know that this is a serious matter, so I agree. Before Lu Yi could finish, Old Tang immediately expressed his opinion and turned to Wuxia. Wuxia also nodded slowly. If this can be done, I have no objections. Lu Yi blinked and the rest of his sentence was stuck in his throat. He could only swallow it. Won't the 2 of you think about it more? Old Tang said, Let me ask you a question. After the integration, the Qing Li Dao world will be completely integrated into the 9 states, right? Will the problem that has been plaguing our world still exist? Lu Yi knew what problem he was talking about. It was the problem of the constellations in the Qing Li Dao world being unable to upgrade Yu Yao. This was the problem of the entire Qing Li Dao world, and it was not something that could be solved by humans. The main reason was that the divine light produced in the Qing Li Dao world was flawed and could only allow cultivators to upgrade to constellations. After the integration, the Qing Li Dao world will no longer exist. Naturally, that problem will no longer exist. Lu Yi replied. Then there is no problem. Tang Jun nodded. Lu Yi could not help but say, I think the 2 of you should think about it more. Tang Jun raised his hand to stop him. Compared to the 2 realms, the 9 states has a more profound and powerful foundation. It has only been a few years since the 9 states became a large realm. In terms of foundation, even the Jade Conch world cannot compare to you. With such a rapid improvement, you have the potential to become a top realm. Furthermore, the 9 states has the Azura field. Regardless of whether you are from the Spirit Stream or the Star Mansion, you can train yourselves there. I heard that the 9 states also has the unfathomable heavenly design, which coordinates all things. These are all things that the Qing Li Dao world desires but cannot obtain. After the integration of the realms, everyone will be a cultivator of the 9 states. Wuxia nodded and said, There is one more thing. The Qing Li Dao world is the first to bear the brunt of Zi Xian's invasion. If you did not gather so many helpers to fend off the enemy, the Qing Li Dao world would have been destroyed. With the current strength of our world, we do not have the ability to resist the enemy. However, if we integrate into the 9 states, we will not have to worry about these problems. After all, Mount Fengsuan is nearby. Tang Jun continued, Indeed, no matter how bad my homeland is, it is the place where I was born and raised. I am also reluctant to part with it. However, if the integration of the world can give future generations a better and brighter future, it is reasonable for our generation to make some sacrifices. As he said this, he looked at Lu Yi and said, "There is no reason to reject such a good thing." Lu Yi looked at the two of them and said, "It seems that the two of you have agreed." Old Tang urged, "Agree. You should act quickly on your side. If there is anything that you need from the world, do not hesitate to ask." The integration of the world was not something that could be done overnight. It required a lot of preparation in the early stages. Seeing that their attitude was firm and even a little impatient, Lu Yi immediately explained. The two of them listened and nodded continuously. From time to time, they were surprised because many of the things that Lu Yi said were impossible to achieve. However, since Lu Yi had made such arrangements, there should be no problem. End of chapter. Chapter 2033. The first thing to be done was to make arrangements for the living beings of the Qinglidao world. Otherwise, there would be a lot of casualties in the process. Not to mention the ordinary people who had never cultivated before, even the cultivators below the constellation level would not be able to withstand the torment of the realm. Therefore, not long after Lu Yi, Tang Jun, and Wu Zhuo's discussion, a group of constellations set off from the 9 states and rushed to the Qinglidao world with a large number of Tianji pillars. In the future, as long as these Tianji pillars were placed in the Qinglidao world, then the living beings of the entire world could be transferred through the Tianji pillars. After everything was arranged, the Tianji pillars would absorb the foundation of the Qinglidao world and lead the Qinglidao world to converge with the 9 states and complete the realm integration. In the past, Little Nine could not do such a thing. The Tianji pillars could only connect a limited range. However, as the foundation of the 9 states continued to strengthen over the years, its ability to exert more and more power, especially after obtaining the Azura field. The power of this treasure could imperceptibly strengthen Little Nine's own ability. It could be said that they complemented each other. It was no exaggeration to say that with the help of the Azura field, the Tianji pillars could now cover more than half of the Jade Snail Galaxy. The reason why Little Nine mentioned the realm integration to Lu Yi was naturally because it would be beneficial to the 9 states. After the realm integration, the foundation of the Qinglidao world would belong to the 9 states. It would definitely be of great help to the growth of the 9 states. No matter what problems the Qinglidao world had, it was still a large world that could nurture constellations. In the past, 9 regions had devoured the foundation of the blood-refining world and the foundation of the Wushuang continent, but these 2 worlds were only low-level regions. Even so, after devouring the foundation of the blood-refining world, 9 regions had also been promoted to a large region. When the 9 states swallowed the foundation of the Qinglidao world in the future, no one knew what would happen. Lu Yi handed over this matter to Wu Zhuo because Lu Yi could not stay in the galaxy for a long time. Tang Jun also could not stay, so in terms of candidate, only Wu Zhuo was left. As for the Qinglidao world, under the premise of the 2 Yuyao's agreement, the fate of the entire world had already been decided. Unsurprisingly, when the news spread, the constellations of the Qinglidao world were reluctant to leave their homeland, but more than that, they were looking forward to it. In the short time they had been in the 9 prefectures, they had already seen too many novel things. Putting everything else aside, just the Azura field alone was enough for them to toss and turn. Lu Yi set the tone for the matter of the realm fusion and left it to Wu Zhuo to deal with. Little Nine would help him in secret. On his side, he ordered a group of people to drive 2 UAL-level central warships to the Insect Passage. Now that the Insect Passage was connected, it was convenient to travel between the local star system and the Wanxiang Sea. However, it was necessary to guard against people with ulterior motives from sneaking into the local star system. Therefore, there had to be people guarding both ends of the Insect Passage. This was a deployment that all galaxies had. Right now, the insect path wasn't stable enough. Even someone like Su Yiming, like Yu Yao, would be in danger if they tried to force their way through. Thus, they didn't need to worry too much. However, there would always be a time when the insect path would stabilize in the future. Thus, they naturally had to make preparations in advance. There weren't many sunshine in the local star system, but there were already quite a few Yu Yao. Most of them were from the Jade Conch realm, so it wasn't a problem for them to take turns overseeing the situation. A few days later, the two warships arrived at the entrance of the insect passage. Lu Yi left one warship to guard this end while he steered the other warship into the insect passage. As usual, he used the heart core of the void beast to open the way. It was a peaceful journey. Not long after, the warship appeared in the Wanxiang Galaxy. This is the Wanxiang Galaxy? On the deck of the warship, Han Dong spoke. As he looked around, his gaze was quickly attracted by a beautiful scene in the distance. Looking from this position, the beautiful scene was like a small water droplet, blooming with colorful lights. It was dazzling. However, Han Dong knew that it was small because it was too far away. If he were to get close to the small water droplet, it would definitely be a huge object. This time, besides Han Dong, there were two other Jade Conch Realm cultivators and Yu Yao who had ascended in the Three-Realm Island. There were also a few constellations who were responsible for guarding this place. They were the first batch of cultivators to guard the insect passage. That's the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi stood beside him and said, "If you're interested, you can go and take a look." Han Dong was clearly moved. He had heard of the Wanxiang Sea's famous name for so many years. Unfortunately, he had never had the chance to see it. Now that he finally saw it with his own eyes, of course he wanted to go and take a look. However, he still shook his head and said, "Next time. There will naturally be a chance when we have a break." Now that he was in the Wanxiang Galaxy, was there no need to worry about not having a chance? There was no hurry. "All right." Lu Yi did not force him. "Then I'll have to trouble you here." Han Dong said seriously, "I will not slack off when it comes to my duty." Lu Yi then looked at the others. "Follow me back to the island." This time, he had not only come to settle down the Yu Yao warship, but also to bring some people back to the Three-Realm Island. Other than Tang Jun, the chief of external affairs, all the Mermaid Clan cultivators and a group of Yu Yao also came along. Very few constellations had returned. Some of the constellations who had returned with him to the Jade Conch realm were now cultivating in seclusion. Most of them stayed in the 9 states to explore the Azura battlefield and train themselves. In total, there were less than 500 people who had returned. Lu Yi and Yen Miao channeled their magic power together, enveloping everyone and flying towards the Wanxiang Sea. Wan Xiao did not return. She had left the Jade Conch realm for many years. Now that she had finally returned, she naturally wanted to visit her homeland. She could be considered to have returned in glory. After a while, she would return on her own. A day later, everyone returned to the Three-Realm Island. Sensing the commotion, the cultivators who had stayed behind to guard the island came out to welcome them, led by Hua Xiai. These cultivators were all from the Jade Conch realm's 3 major realms. They had wanted to return with Lu Yi to kill the enemy, but someone had to stay behind to guard the Three-Realm Island. These days, they had been on tenterhooks and uneasy, not knowing what the fate of their galaxy was. Now that only a few people had returned out of more than 2,000 people, their expressions changed drastically. Hua Xi's expression was solemn, and her red lips were pursed. Seeing their expressions, Lu Yi knew that they had misunderstood. He smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry, our galaxy has won a complete victory in this battle. Zi Xian's 10 demon lords and 10,000 demon cultivators have all been killed." Many cultivators of the 3 realms were stunned at first, and then they were greatly shocked. They began to ask about the course of the battle. Cultivators familiar with each other quickly gathered in groups of 3 to 5. The full picture of the previous battle was gradually presented to the cultivators who had stayed behind. After learning that Lu Yi had invited many small humans and Ri Zhao of the Soul Clan, they could not hide their surprise. They did not know that Lu Ye's connections were so good that he could invite so many helpers at once. They lamented in their hearts that the demon lords of Zishuan had died unjustly. Even they did not know that the Jade Conch realm could bring out such a powerful lineup. Zishuan must have thought that the Jade Conch realm had sent out 10 demon lords. Who knew that they had kicked an iron plate? On the other side, Yi was snuggling in Hua Xi's arms. Yi had originally planned to return to the Soul Clan's ancestral land. Of course, she did not want to be separated from Lu Yi. However, in the previous battle, she could finally help Lu Yi a little with the soul possession technique. She immediately wanted to return to the ancestral land to continue improving her cultivation. A short separation was only for a longer reunion. Yi understood this principle. Lu Yi only asked her, "Do you miss big sister Wuxia?" Yi gave up the idea of returning to the Soul clan's ancestral land and followed him to the Wanxiang Sea. She had a very good relationship with Wuxia. After not seeing her for so many years, she naturally missed her. Now that Yi was pestering Wuxia, Lu Yi felt extremely safe. He could feel that this woman still remembered what had happened before and wanted to cause trouble for him all the time. "Did anything happen recently?" Lu Yi asked. Wuxia rubbed Yi's little head and looked at him with a smile. "Nothing much. Many people are trying to find out why you left and where you went." Now, the three-world island reigned supreme in the Wanxiang Sea. The previous movements of the three-world island naturally could not be hidden from the investigation of people who wanted to know. However, as long as the news was not leaked, others would not be able to find out anything. Lu Yi nodded slightly and asked with concern, "No one wants to harm you, right?" Little Melon had swallowed the Tri-Treasure Scepter money. After various unexplainable changes, it was now a living starry sky absolute treasure. Its true master was Wuxia. This was no secret. It was possible that no one wanted to take advantage of the three-world island's weakness to do something to Wuxia. "I've been hiding." Wuxia smiled. "And Little Melon has been hiding in the Wanxiang Sea. However, if a Rizhao dares to approach the three-world island, it will lock onto him with its divine sense." "That's good." Lu Yi relaxed. Being locked onto by a starry sky absolute treasure's divine sense was not a small matter for any Rizhao. Therefore, after experiencing such a situation a few times, no Rizhao dared to approach the three-world island. "Oh right, Jian sent a message asking you to go to the Wanxiang Island to find her when you return. It seems that she has something to discuss with you." As Wuxia spoke, she took out a stack of things and handed them over. "These are for you too." "What are these?" Li took them in shock. "Greeting Tieba," Wuxia explained casually. "They are from all the top spiritual islands." Lu Yi checked and found that they were greeting cards. There were quite a number of them. If he really counted, all the top spiritual islands in the Wanxiang Sea had sent greeting cards. Previously, he had changed the rules of the Wanxiang Sea. The top spiritual islands could allow Rizhao to enter. Now, all the top spiritual islands should have made arrangements. Since Rizhao from all the top spiritual islands had come to the Wanxiang Sea, they naturally had to pay a visit to the owner of the island. These greeting cards were a form of etiquette. It was also the prestige of the previous battle. If not for the previous battle, who would look up to the three-world island? Lu Yi knew that these greeting cards originated from Little Melon. The three-world island alone was not qualified enough for the top spiritual islands to treat it with such care. Lu Yi did not have much of a relationship with the top spiritual islands. Other than the Five-Color Island, he naturally could not be bothered with these greeting cards. He casually threw them aside. "You guys chat. I'll go and see Senior Mabin first," Lu Yi said and walked towards the Spirit Jade Mine. End of chapter. Chapter 2034. While Lu Yi was away, Wuxia had been managing the three-world island. However, she was inexperienced and had limited energy, causing her to be overwhelmed most of the time. Now that Old Tang had returned, he would take over the management of the three-world island. Wuxia was able to enjoy some peace as she chatted happily with it. Soon, her expression turned bitter as she was about to cry. In the Spirit Jade Mine, Lu Yi visited Ma Bin. Ma Bin had yet to recover from his injuries and was still recuperating. Hence, they only had a brief chat. After leaving the mystical Jade Vein, Lu Yi headed straight for the Island of Versatility. Half a day later, he arrived at the Island of Versatility. Lu Yi exclaimed after scanning the place with his divine sense. It was the Island of Versatility after all. Even after such a huge incident, the place was still as lively as before, with countless cultivators coming and going. The Island of Versatility, in particular, was the busiest place. However, When he recalled that he would receive half of the profits from the island of versatility in the future, his mood immediately improved. The more prosperous the place was, the greater the profits of the three-world island would be. Jiao Yan had done well. The fact that the island of versatility had been restored to its original state in such a short time made Lu Yi even more certain that he had made the right decision. If the island of versatility had not been handed over to Juyen, a local cultivator, it would have been impossible for it to recover so quickly. A divine sense extended from a certain direction of the island of versatility. Lu Yi immediately realized that Jiao Yan had sensed his arrival and was guiding him there. His figure flickered as he flew in that direction. A short while later, Lu Yi saw Jiao Yan's familiar figure again in the mystical jade vein of the island of versatility. "Senior sister," Lu Yi greeted. "No need to be so courteous." Jiao Yan stared at Lu Yi with her blurred face. She was slightly surprised after a brief glance, as she discovered that Lu Ye's aura had changed slightly. It wasn't that Lu Yi had become much stronger, but rather, it was a kind of confidence in his own strength. She couldn't help but wonder what had happened to Lu Yi recently. "Sit," Julian said. There was a futon not far from her. Lu Yi did not hesitate and sat down with his legs crossed. He glanced around and murmured, "As expected of the island of versatility, this mystical jade vein is much bigger than the three-world island. The larger the spirit jade mine was, the more spirit jade it produced. Sunshine, like Jiao Yan, would benefit from cultivating in it more. In the past, only the 5 Rizhao guardians were qualified to enter this place. Now, only Jiao Yan could enter. Legend has it that the island of versatility is the first spiritual island in the sea of versatility. Naturally, it has some extraordinary features. If you regret it, I can return the island of versatility," Jiao Yan said slowly. Lu Yi smiled. "Senior sister, what are you talking about? Since we have an agreement, of course we have to follow it. Moreover, the three-world island has more than one top-grade spiritual island. Why would we need so many?" Jiao Yan was speechless. To any realm, a top-grade spiritual island was an extremely important resource. Who would complain about having more? But Three-World Island didn't like it. Jiao Yan did not want to talk to him about this, so she changed the topic. "I heard that you are attacking a certain galaxy this time?" There was indeed such a rumor on the Sea of Versatility. Jiao Yan was not making it up. After all, many people had seen the Three-World Island deploy their troops and warships that day. "That's just a rumor." Lu Yi denied it immediately. "We just went back to protect our home. How is that attacking others? The cultivators of the Three-World Island are all peaceful people. We have always been kind and humble. We never cause trouble." Jiao Yan's eyelids twitched. She ignored his boasting and asked in confusion, "Protect your home? You mean to say that the worm path you used was connected to your home, and then you ran into trouble there?" Lu Yi did not hide it. "The galaxy we came from is called the Jade Snail Galaxy. Previously, Zixian and the other demon lords led tens of thousands of troops to invade our galaxy. So, we went back and fought with them." Jiao Yan was stunned. "How is this related to Zixian?" "It's all because of He Yun and Yuan Du." Lu Yi looked angry. Back then, Yuan Du captured a few of the Three-World Islands constellations and used a soul-searching technique to find the location of our galaxy. He lured He Yun to seek revenge. As a result, He Yun suffered a great loss in our galaxy. He felt indignant and asked Zixian's army to invade. When I heard the news, I quickly led people back to help." Jiao Yan was stunned for a while before she came back to her senses. What happened? Even with her sunny temperament, she could not help but be intrigued. She wanted to know the result of the battle. However, since Lu Yi could return safely, it must be because Zixian was defeated. Zixian was killed from the sunny to the constellations. They were all killed, Lu Yi said casually. Jiao Yan's heart trembled. She stared at Lu Yi and did not know whether to believe him or not. With the strength of the Three-World Islands reinforcements, there was no way they could fight back against Zixian's army. Jiao Yan thought that the Three-World Island was lucky to be able to defeat Zixian. Who would have thought that Lu Yi would say that Zixian's army was killed? 10,000 monster cultivators were nothing, but the key was that there were 10 monster venerables. As far as I know, the starry sky treasure of the three-world island has always been on the Wanxiang Sea, Jiao Yan said slowly. What she meant was that without the help of the starry sky treasure, how could the Jade Conch Galaxy destroy an army like Zixian's? Little Melon is indeed on the Wanxiang Sea, but my Jade Conch Galaxy is not a pushover. Lu Yi smiled, looking enigmatic. Jiao Yan looked at him, not knowing whether he was telling the truth or not. If he was telling the truth, it would be too exaggerated and not in line with the truth. However, if he was lying, Lu Yi had no reason to lie to her. It was meaningless. Besides, Zixian had suffered a great loss. She should be able to find out after asking around. It seems that your Jade Conch Galaxy's waters run deep. Jiao Yan pointed out. Lu Yi smiled and changed the subject. By the way, why did senior sister summon me? Winged Sky Island. Jiao Yan said, someone from the Winged Sky planet contacted me. They want to pay a price to redeem the Winged Sky Island. Any top-grade spiritual island was a strategic resource for the top-grade domain that occupied it. It could not be lost easily. The battle on the Wanxiang Sea had nothing to do with the Winged Sky Island. However, Shen Yun thought that he had the Heavenly Luo umbrella and did not take the three-world island seriously. He wanted to take advantage of the situation, but Little Melon broke the Heavenly Luo umbrella and killed him on the spot. This directly led to the loss of the Winged Sky Island. The Winged Sky planet naturally wanted to redeem it from the three-world island. There was a precedent for this. Back then, the three-world island captured Zixian, and Zixian paid a price to redeem the island. Obviously, they had found Jiao Yan because they knew that Jiao Yan had a special relationship with the three-world island. Otherwise, they would not have let Jiao Yan manage the Wanxiang Island. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. What price can they pay? Jiao Yan said, they are willing to pay whatever Zixian paid back then. I'm afraid they're dreaming. Lu Yi sneered. Back then, they were willing to let Zixian redeem the island because Lu Yi wanted to kill Lionheart. This was one of the conditions of the deal. Secondly, the three-world island did not have the confidence to offend a top-grade domain. Moreover, 10 billion spiritual jades was a huge fortune for the three-world island. However, that was then and this is now. What was 10 billion spiritual jades? If the Winged Sky planet wanted to redeem a top-grade spiritual island with such a small price, of course Lu Yi would not agree. Moreover, Shen Yun had died at Lu Ye's hands and the Heavenly Luo umbrella had been broken. This enmity had been formed. Even if they had to pay a huge price to redeem the Winged Sky Island, they would be helping the enemy. It was impossible that the previous enmity would disappear just because Lu Yi asked them to redeem the Winged Sky Island. Senior sister, how is your relationship with the Winged Sky planet? Lu Yi asked again. Jiao Yan said indifferently, someone found me and asked me to pass on a message. Nothing else. Then I know what to do. Lu Yi nodded. If Jiao Yan interceded, he would be in a difficult position. She was just passing on a message. Of course, he did not care too much. Putting this matter aside, Lu Yi said again, Senior sister, I have the intention to build a teleportation formation between the 4 top-grade spiritual islands, the Three-World Island, the 10,000 Island, the Purple Jade Island, and the Winged Sky Island. What do you think? The 10,000 Islands sea was huge. Now that he was in the Sunshine Realm, it was easy for him to travel between the various spiritual islands. However, he did not forget the difficulty of traveling in the 10,000 Island Sea when he was in the Constellation Realm. Often, it would take 10 to 20 days or even longer to travel from one spiritual island to another. However, if there was a teleportation formation, it would be much more convenient. The 4 top-grade spiritual islands were now considered the Three-World Islands property. With a teleportation formation connecting them, it would not only be convenient to travel between them in the future, but if any spiritual island was in trouble, the other 3 islands would also be able to provide assistance. It was not that there were no teleportation formations in the 10,000 Island Sea, but they were basically only connected between spiritual islands that were close to each other. It was not universal. This was because there were advantages and disadvantages to a teleportation formation. If it was used by someone with bad intentions, it could be used directly. Therefore, if the relationship was not close enough, it would not be allowed to build a teleportation formation. You can make the decision. I have no objections. Jiao Yen replied. In name, she was now the owner of the 10,000 island. However, she knew the actual situation very well. Lu Yi had asked her to manage the 10,000 island mainly because of her identity as the 10,000 island sunshine. Moreover, she could not refuse the benefits of managing the 10,000 island. Therefore, both parties were considered to be partners. Now that Lu Yi wanted to build a teleportation formation, how could she have any objections? Thank you, senior sister. Lu Yi thanked her. I will arrange this when I return. After chatting with Jiao Yen for a while, Lu Yi bid farewell and left. When he returned to the three-world island, Lu Yi found Old Tang and told him about the matter of building a teleportation formation. Old Tang's face immediately turned bitter. I should have stayed in Jade Conch to retire. Building a teleportation formation was not an easy task. Capable people do more work. Lu Yi comforted him and said, "Oh right, find some people and spread the news of the battle between Jade Conch and Zixian. Be careful, don't be too deliberate." Chapter 2035. In the battle with Zixian, Lu Ye's original plan was to leave a demon venerable alive. However, he failed to do so. As a result, no one would publicize the result of the battle. Now that he thought about it, even if he did leave a demon venerable alive, the other party would not expose their shortcomings and help Jade Conch spread the news. Therefore, he had to do it himself. As soon as he said this, Old Tang immediately understood and nodded. That's easy. After I came back, many people have already sent messages to me, inquiring about what we were doing before. I'll just release a little bit of information later. It was foreseeable that this news would cause quite a stir. When the time came, there would definitely be many factions looking for confirmation. Zixian's loss could not be covered up. If someone paid attention to Zixian's situation, they would know that the news released by Three World Island was true. With this battle as a deterrent, no one would dare to have any ideas about the Jade Conch. Also, Lu Yi remembered something. Of the 4 top-tier spiritual islands we have, Juyen is in charge of the all-encompassing island. Mount Fangzuan has reserved Purple Jade Island for the little humans. What do you think we should do with Winged Sky Island? The minuscule mountain was already preparing. Soon, Rizhao would lead his people to settle in. Lu Yi did not know which Rizhao would come. It was a matter for the minuscule mountain to discuss among themselves. Lao Tang thought for a while and said, "Divide the forces? Now that fellow Taoist Luan is Rizhao, we can give some people to her to take to Winged Island." That's a good idea. Lu Yi also had the same idea. This was the only way. After all, they couldn't abandon such a big spiritual island. Although splitting up their forces would weaken the overall strength of the three-world island, the 10,000 Elephant Sea was no longer a threat. Moreover, as long as the teleportation formation was completed in the future, they would be able to support each other at any time. However, senior sister Luan is still in Jade Conch. I don't know when she will return. You should send some people to Winged Sky Island first. When she returns, inform her about this matter. I will go find senior sister Yen Miao and ask her to help look after Winged Sky Island for a while. Lao Tang nodded. But Lu Yi went to find Yen Miao and told her about it. Yen Miao naturally agreed. Less than half a day later, hundreds of cultivators from the three-world island flew toward the Winged Sky Island under the leadership of Yen Miao. The main purpose of dividing the forces was not to occupy the top-grade spirit islands. This was just a matter of convenience. The biggest benefit was that after the manpower was divided, the cultivation efficiency of the cultivators on both the Three-Realm Island and the Winged Sky Island would be improved to a certain extent. Old Tang was busy. Most of the Three-World Island's cultivators were running around under his command. The news that the Three-World Island wanted to build a teleportation formation between the 4 top-grade spiritual islands gradually spread. News of the battle between the Jade Conch Galaxy and Zixian also spread. Just as Lu Yi had expected, when the news spread, almost no one believed it. But the truth couldn't be false, and a lie couldn't be true. Sure enough, the top forces began to seek confirmation from all sides, and some even began to send people to the Zixuan Demon Star to gather information. This was because the only channel that could confirm this information was Zixuan. However, it would take some time to get a definite answer. Under the 10,000 Elephant Sea, Lu Yi was immersed in the seawater. He activated the power of his talent tree and crazily devoured the seawater of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. That day, he had devoured 3 great suns and many Yu Yao, which had allowed him to attain the peak of his source and advance to the Sunshine Realm. Immediately after that, he participated in the battle without stopping and led his troops back to the 9 states. It could be said that after advancing to the Sunshine Realm, he hadn't had the time to stabilize his realm, let alone cultivate properly. The main purpose of his trip back to the 10,000 Elephant Sea was to stabilize his realm. Otherwise, if he went out and couldn't conceal his Sunshine Realm aura, anyone who saw him would know that he had just advanced. As soon as he started cultivating, Lu Yi immediately sensed that something was different from before. His efficiency had increased, and the change was extraordinarily huge. Lu Yi had experienced this change before. Every time the quality of his source increased, his cultivation efficiency would increase as well. However, he had never experienced such a huge improvement before. When a cultivator reached Yu Yao's level, their spiritual energy would be refined by their source and transformed into transcendence energy. In comparison, transcendence energy was the sublimation of spiritual energy. It was undoubtedly more destructive and lethal. Back when Lu Yi was in the late star constellation realm, he could kill star constellations as easily as chopping vegetables. However, even against Yu Yao, who had just advanced, it was still extremely difficult. This was because the nature of their power was different. When a cultivator above Yu Yao cultivated, the power they obtained from the outside world was not transcendence energy. Whether it was absorbing spirit jades and spirit crystals, refining the spiritual energy of the starry skies, or through other methods, they still obtained spiritual energy. This spiritual energy would only be transformed into transcendence energy after being refined by their source. Therefore, the quality of their source would affect the efficiency of a cultivator's cultivation. This was because their source played a crucial role in the entire cultivation process. It was the source of the transformation of spiritual energy into transcendence energy. Lu Yi had always cultivated under the 10,000 Elephant Sea. The power of his talent tree had hardly changed over the years. In other words, the speed at which he absorbed and refined spiritual energy from the 10,000 Elephant Sea was about the same as before. This did not change with the increase in his cultivation realm. However, the speed at which his spiritual energy was transformed into transcendence energy had undergone an earth-shattering change. If he could obtain 1 portion of transcendence energy in a day's cultivation in the past, then he could obtain 5, 8, or even more now. This was undoubtedly a huge benefit brought about by the completion of his source. Even Lu Yi was shocked by this terrifying cultivation efficiency. However, this was undoubtedly a good thing for him. Because of this, his cultivation speed in the Sunshine Realm would become very fast. Others would need to accumulate tens or hundreds of years of foundation, but he could achieve it in a very short time. He sighed inwardly. The 10,000 Elephant Sea was truly his blessed land. If he had not accidentally come to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he would not have known where to find such a suitable place for his cultivation. After checking the fuel reserves of his talent tree, Lu Yi found that there was still a lot of it. He immediately allowed the talent tree's power to be stimulated and began to condense his blood. The 9 drops of blood had all exploded before, so he did not have the time to condense them. Moreover, the blood was related to the removal of the black fruit from the talent tree, so he naturally had to do it quickly. Soon, Lu Yi discovered something that surprised him. After his cultivation had increased, the speed at which he condensed his blood had also increased. Time slowly passed. There was no trace of Lu Yi in the 3-world island. Before he started cultivating, he had already greeted a few people, so no one came to find him. 2 months later, under the 10,000 Elephant Sea, Lu Yi slowly opened his eyes. In these 2 months, his cultivation had completely stabilized. Moreover, there was still some precipitation. At this time, Lu Yi did not need to use his transcendence energy or release any aura. There were 9 drops of blood in his body, which were all condensed recently. Moreover, he had used the previous method to let these 9 drops of blood carry a part of the black fruit. Under his inspection, the black fruit on the innate skill tree had clearly become smaller. This result made Lu Yi very satisfied. Just as he had thought before, as long as he could condense enough precious blood, there would be a day when he could completely remove this black fruit. This was an advantage he had that the previous generation of the Dao tree successor did not have. He had obtained the blood after refining the blood ancestors' sacred blood. Chao Nian did not have it. There were 2 choices in front of Lu Yi. One was to ignore it for the time being. When he faced an enemy in the future, he would condense a blood clone and self-detonate it. This way, he would have one more method to deal with the enemy. Self-detonation at the level of sunshine, even if it was just a blood clone, could not be underestimated. Previously, when the 9 blood clones self-detonated at the same time, the reason why they did not have the desired effect was mainly because there was an accident that was not under his control. The other choice was to condense a blood clone now. By abandoning the clone, he would also abandon the burden inside. In this way, he could use this method to remove the black fruit as soon as possible and avoid some hidden dangers. Lu Yi thought for a moment and chose to put it aside for the time being. Although the speed of condensing the blood was much faster than before, it still took time and energy. Of course, it was the best choice to save it to deal with the enemy. Now that his method was effective, the black fruit would disappear sooner or later. He just needed to wait a little longer. At present, the black fruit was much smaller than before, so it would not affect his temperament too much. However, before that, Lu Yi still had one more thing to verify. After a short while, he left the Wanxiang Sea, chose a direction, and flew towards the depths of the starry sky. After a full day of flying, Lu Yi finally arrived at a desolate planet. Dust and sand danced in the air, and scorched earth was everywhere. There was no sign of life, and even a large part of the desolate planet itself had been damaged. It was unknown who had caused this damage in the vicinity. After randomly choosing a place to land, Lu Yi flicked his finger, and a drop of blood flew out. While still in midair, it twisted and transformed into a blood clone. As usual, this blood clone had an extremely close connection with Lu Ye's main body. It gave Lu Yi the feeling that it was a part of his body and could be controlled at will. Lu Yi waited quietly. After the previous incident, he knew that this peace was only temporary. Sure enough, after a while, Lu Yi felt that the connection between him and the precious blood avatar had weakened a little. There was also an abnormal aura emanating from the precious blood avatar, which made the surface of the precious blood avatar look like a twisted black. Gradually, the blood clone's expression became ferocious. The connection between Lu Yi and it became weaker and weaker. The twisted black on the surface of its body became so thick that it was solid, and it was still growing stronger. Lu Yi vaguely felt that something was awakening in the clone's body. This made his heart tremble. Could it be that his previous guess was right? If this kind of blood clone was left alone, could the consciousness of the cultivators he had devoured really recover in the clone? End of chapter. Chapter 2036. If such a situation really happened, it would be too terrifying. This was equivalent to the resurrection of the dead, but with a new body. But thinking about it carefully, Lu Yi felt that it was unlikely. The root of the black fruit was the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the cultivators it had devoured. The emotions and desires of so many cultivators were mixed together, and they had long been indistinguishable from each other. Even if there was a possibility that the avatar could be revived, it wouldn't revive the consciousness of a cultivator. It was more likely that it would revive a chaotic mass of consciousness. Of course, this was only Lu Ye's own guess. Whether or not this was the case remained to be seen. This was also the reason why Lu Yi ran out to test this matter. He wanted to know what would happen if he left the avatar alone. As time passed, the connection between the main body and the avatar became weaker and weaker, and the avatar's changes also became greater and greater. It stood there like a gathering of many evils in the world, giving off an ominous feeling just by looking at it. Moreover, there was an unknown sound coming from its throat, and when it looked at Lu Yi, Its eyes flashed with hostility and killing intent from time to time. At this time, even if Lu Yi wanted to control the avatar, it wouldn't have much effect. He tried to pass on orders, but the avatar simply ignored him. After a while, the connection between the doppelganger and the main body was completely severed. At this moment, the doppelganger suddenly roared like a beast, and then its whole body turned into a black light, rushing straight at Lu Yi like an ancient, fierce beast. Even if he had some guesses when this scene really happened, Lu Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The avatar actually attacked the main body. If this matter were to spread out, it would simply be a joke. He could clearly feel the evil thoughts and killing intent in the avatar's body, as if he was an irreconcilable enemy. Lu Yi could understand in his heart, because the will that controlled the avatar at this moment was the root of the many cultivators who had died at his hands. It was reasonable for it to have such evil thoughts towards an enemy like him. The two figures quickly collided, and magic power buzzed, and blood surged. It had to be said that the avatar was really mysterious. Except for the fact that it couldn't stimulate the power of the talent tree on its own, it could basically display all of Lu Yi's strength for a short time. After this exchange, Lu Yi felt as if he had encountered a real sunshine. Unfortunately, the doppelganger's attacks were not organized. After all, it did not have a real consciousness. All of its attacks were like a wild beast going crazy, rushing around brainlessly to kill the living thing in front of it. Therefore, even if the precious blood clone could exert the strength of Rizhao, Lu Yi could deal with it easily. He didn't even need to draw his sword. After such a fierce confrontation, Lu Yi clearly felt that the strength of the precious blood avatar was declining. This was the only drawback of the precious blood avatar. The strength it could display was not long enough. This was because its foundation came from Lu Yi's original body. Without Lu Yi, it was like a tree without roots. Relying solely on the power stored in the precious blood, the more time passed, the weaker it would become. If it didn't withdraw it in time, it would eventually dissipate. In this regard, the precious blood avatar was far inferior to the talent tree avatar. The talent tree avatar could activate the spirit inscriptions on the talent tree. The key was that the talent tree avatar could last longer and could also recover by devouring spirit jades. At present, there was no way to withdraw the precious blood avatar, and what should be verified had been verified. Lu Yi immediately thought of something and unsheathed his Pan-Shan saber. When the long saber slashed down, the divine edge spirit inscriptions supported it. Under this slash, the precious blood avatar was almost cut in half, but it still did not retreat. It looked as if it would drag Lu Yi down with it even if it had to die. Lu Yi made another slash and completely killed it. The doppelganger exploded, and blood spilled everywhere. A huge hole was corroded in the ground, and a black aura filled the air. Lu Yi's expression was subtle. I fought with my own doppelganger, and then I won. This is quite funny. Just as he was about to withdraw his saber, his heart tightened, and an inexplicable warning came. In the next moment, a surge of terrifying soul power swept over and enveloped him in an instant. Lu Yi couldn't help but sway. His mind was shaken at this moment, and he even felt a little dizzy. He was ambushed. He immediately realized that the one who ambushed him was not an ordinary sunshine cultivator, because the one who could crush him in terms of soul power was at least in the late stage of the sunshine realm, or even higher. In the dark, he seemed to see a huge circle of light coming toward him, making him feel that there was no way to avoid it. The circle of light was not a physical object, nor was it seen by the eyes. It was a perception of the mind. Soul-subduing secret art? Lu Yi's heart trembled, and his expression suddenly became ferocious. Who was the one who ambushed him? He actually used the soul-subduing secret art to suppress his divine soul. Obviously, this person knew his background and knew that he had not been in the sunshine realm for long. In the face of this level of soul-subduing secret art, he basically had no power to resist. Therefore, the first thing he did was to kill him. Even if Lu Yi's divine soul was stronger and more tenacious than other cultivators of the same level, there was still a limit. In the face of this level of soul-subduing secret art, he did not have much power to resist. In his mind, the circle of light quickly fell, and his divine soul became weaker and weaker. If it was really suppressed, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this moment, a small pagoda quickly rose from the divine sea to meet the falling circle of light. It was the soul-subduing pagoda that Lu Yi had exchanged for in the 9 Continents War Merit Pavilion many years ago. This thing was of good quality in the 9 continents, but in the starry sky, it was nothing at all. It was just that this thing had always been placed in the divine sea, and Lu Yi did not care about it, treating it as a memento. At this time, it ran out to protect its master. The small pagoda and the circle of light collided silently. The circle of light was still falling, but the small pagoda was like a snowflake under the scorching sun, quickly melting, and did not have any effect at all. Asterisk ding ling ling. Asterisk a clear and melodious sound rang out. Within the tumbling divine sea, the sound of a bell rang out. Before Lu Yi set out for the illusory blood demon pupil, Su Yuqing had given him a red talisman and a bell. This bell was called the soul-setting bell, and it was also a kind of soul artifact that had the effect of protecting the divine soul. The things that Su Yuqing gave him were undoubtedly of much higher quality than the soul-subduing pagoda. Lu Ye's originally drowsy divine soul was stimulated by the bell and suddenly regained a trace of clarity. The speed of the circle of light suppression seemed to have slowed down, but the sound of the bell became more urgent. Kacha, a crisp sound came out, as a crack appeared on the spirit-setting bell. Lu Ye's heart was overwhelmed with shock. He immediately knew that his judgment was wrong. The enemy that ambushed him was much stronger than he thought. If not, a spirit treasure like the spirit-setting bell would not be unable to withstand the enemy's subduing spirit technique. Boundless anger surged in his heart. 2 soul artifacts in the divine sea, one was destroyed and the other was broken, but he did not even know who attacked him. Borrowing that moment of clarity, he madly urged his soul power and poured it into the rainbow god lotus in the divine sea. In the next moment, there seemed to be a 7-colored glow blooming, illuminating the surroundings. The circle of light melted, his drowsy consciousness finally recovered, and he had a splitting headache. A surprised voice came from behind, obviously not expecting Lu Yi to be able to break free from the suppression of his soul-subduing secret technique. It was a coincidence that he could find Lu Yi here. Originally, he planned to go to the 10,000 Elephant Sea to find Jiao Yan, but halfway there, he heard a fight here, and it was between 2 Rizhao. Out of curiosity, he hid himself and came to investigate, only to see Lu Yi. In fact, he had met Lu Yi once a few years ago, but at that time, Lu Yi was only Yu Yao, and with another Rizhao, so he did not pay much attention. After returning to the galaxy, he saw images of Lu Yi from several other Rizhao in the galaxy. Naturally, he recognized her at a glance. She was the same Yu Yao he met years ago, the culprit behind the upheaval in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Of course, he did not want to miss such a heaven-sent opportunity. Taking advantage of Lu Ye's unpreparedness, he suddenly launched a sneak attack, and to ensure that he would not fail, he immediately used the soul-subduing secret technique. As long as he could capture Lu Yi, the galaxy could regain control of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. He could even use Lu Yi as a bargaining chip to make the star artifact his own. Driven by such a huge profit, even a peak Rizhao like him could not hold back. His cultivation realm was much higher than Lu Ye's, and he used the soul-subduing secret technique to launch a sneak attack. Logically speaking, Lu Yi should not have been able to resist. But in fact, his soul-subduing secret technique did not have the desired effect. Not only did his plan fail, but his own divine soul was also shaken. This kid is strange. At this moment, Lu Ye's eyes were bloodshot, and his head hurt so much that it felt like it was going to split open. This was the result of the collision between their divine souls. He endured the discomfort, and as soon as he recovered, he sensed a powerful and profound aura behind him, reaching out to grab him. He hurriedly turned around and slashed out fiercely with his blade. This slash felt like it had hit a metal wall. His opponent was caught off guard by the backlash of the soul-subduing secret technique, but it did not have much effect. It only left a small cut on his opponent's arm. For the Pan Shan blade, which had always been known for its sharpness, this was unbelievable. Peak Rizhao. Lu Yi immediately came to a conclusion. He looked up and saw that his attacker was a hale and hearty old man with snow-white hair. He vaguely felt that this old man looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before, but he did not have time to think. The old man was indeed at the peak of Rizhao. His physique was unbelievably strong. "You're courting death." The old man had only been hit by the backlash of the soul-subduing secret technique for a moment, so he had recovered. He shouted, and his spiritual power, which was much purer than Lu Ye's, swept out. Lu Yi was sent flying like a paper kite, and he spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. He hurriedly turned around, madly channeled his spiritual power, and used the blood escape technique to escape towards the Wanxiang Sea. He was no match for the old man. Only by escaping back to the Wanxiang Sea could he survive. "You want to run?" Wishful thinking. The old man coldly snorted. This time, he had already made a move against Lu Yi, so he could only go all the way. Trying to escape from his hands was simply a fantasy. As soon as he finished speaking, he chased after Lu Yi, determined to kill him. End of chapter. Chapter 2037. The old man was at the peak of the Sunshine Realm, so his speed was extremely fast. However, he didn't expect that just as he moved, the blood mist that Lu Yi spat out just now suddenly twisted and transformed into 3 figures. Lu Yi had used his injuries to conceal himself and mixed the 3 drops of precious blood into the mist. With such a method of concealment, no one would be able to find any clues. The elder was shocked. He observed the 3 figures and found that they all had the aura of sunshine. He was shocked. This technique was similar to the blood shadow technique that he knew. However, the usual blood shadow technique was not as mysterious as this. Moreover, the shadows produced by the blood shadow technique were more illusory. However, the 3 figures in front of him were real. They were more like the precious blood clones that only the blood saints of the blood race had. However, as far as he knew, most of them only had 1 or 2 precious blood clones. He had never heard of a saint who could condense 3 precious blood clones. There was no time to think, because he had already broken into the 3 figures and was surrounded by them. If it were an ordinary sunshine, he would have been caught off guard and would have panicked. However, the old man's cultivation was profound, so he didn't panic at all. However, in the next moment, his expression changed, because the 3 figures were emitting extremely violent auras at the same time. Self-detonation. The old man was shocked. He had the ability to look down on 3 ordinary sunshine cultivators, but if such a sunshine cultivator self-detonated at close range, even he couldn't ignore it. He hurriedly took out a magic treasure to protect himself. Boom! A loud sound rang out, and the entire desolate planet shook. The originally incomplete desolate planet shattered under the huge impact, and pieces of floating continents flew in all directions. At the center of the violent energy, the old man rushed out with an ashen face. Although he wasn't injured, he was in a sorry state. The protective magic treasure on his body was extremely dim. Obviously, it had been damaged. He had to admit that the self-detonation of the 3 precious blood clones had indeed caught him off guard. The main reason was that he had never encountered such a method before. However, the more it was like this, the more determined he was to capture Lu Yi. He had just advanced and already had such means. If he was allowed to grow, how powerful would he be in the future? Since they had already become enemies, he could only follow this path to the end. Now that the legendary Starry Sky treasure wasn't with Lu Yi, there wouldn't be a next time if he missed this opportunity. Looking at Lu Ye's fleeing figure from afar, the old man's eyes turned cold. However, before he could go far, a figure suddenly appeared from a nearby meteorite and rushed straight at him. The old man turned his head to look, and he couldn't help but be stunned because the figure that was pouncing towards him was actually another clone of Lu Yi. Before he even got close, an extremely violent aura surged out of the clone's body. Again! The elder's expression became serious. He knew that this precious blood clone would rush over and self-destruct. How could he let the other party do as he wished? He immediately used his methods to attack from a distance. Before the precious blood clone could get close, he blew it up. Although his method was clean and efficient, It still delayed him for a few breaths of time. After dealing with the clone, the old man continued his pursuit. After a while, another bloody figure with a violent aura approached from the front. How could there be more? This time, the old man really couldn't understand. This kind of doppelganger technique must be extremely mysterious. Moreover, one had to pay a huge price to use it. How could Lu Yi, a newly promoted Rizhao, use it again and again? In such a short time, he had already encountered 5 of them. Of course, he knew that Lu Yi was using this method to delay him, but he couldn't ignore it because this bloody figure had come with the intention of self-destructing. If he ignored it, the trouble would only be greater, so he could only kill it with a thunderous method. But every time this happened, Lu Yi would take the opportunity to escape. After the 5th, there was a 6th, then a 7th, and an 8th. After chasing Lu Yi all the way until he destroyed 8 of his clones, the old man was sure that Lu Yi had run out of tricks, because no more bloody figures suddenly ran out to entangle him. He was secretly shocked. This kind of method was simply incredible. To think that with his powerful cultivation, chasing a newly promoted Rizhao for so long without success really made him feel a little embarrassed. As the distance between them continued to shrink, he urged his magic power and slowly said, "Boy, if you surrender obediently, this old man will not make things difficult for you, nor will I take your life." Killing a newly promoted Rizhao was not difficult for him, but compared to killing Lu Yi, it was obviously more valuable to capture him alive. After all, this was related to the ownership of a starry sky supreme treasure. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear. The 10,000 Elephant Sea was not far away. As long as he could escape into the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he could get rid of the old man. He secretly rejoiced that he didn't run too far this time, otherwise, he would really be in trouble. It was a pity that the precious blood doppelganger had been used up. When he was doing the experiment, he killed one, but was chased by the old man and lost 8. Thanks to the precious blood doppelganger, he really couldn't be entangled with the old man like this. However, he still had a red talisman that could be used to escape, which had been nourished in his body. As long as he urged the power of the red talisman, he could immediately get rid of the old man. However, this was risky, because once the power of the red talisman was urged, Lu Yi would be randomly teleported to a certain location within the range of the red talisman's power. It could be very close, or it could be very far, and it could not be controlled by human strength. If he appeared on the 10,000 Elephant Sea, it would be fine, but if he appeared somewhere else, it might be more dangerous. He didn't know the origin of the old man, but from the fact that the old man appeared on that desolate planet, Lu Yi could conclude one thing. This old man was a cultivator from the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. The old man must have met him by chance this time, and saw that there was an opportunity to take advantage of, so he suddenly attacked. Since the old man was a cultivator from the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy, and he had never seen him before, then the old man's identity was obvious. Ma Bin had mentioned a person to him before and told him to be careful, because this person was the strongest person in the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. That was why he didn't want to use the red talisman. If he ran to the Yuan world, he would be a turtle in a jar. The aura behind him was constantly approaching. Lu Yi could feel that the old man was constantly urging his soul power to shake his divine soul while he was chasing him. However, after suffering a loss once, Lu Yi had been maintaining the power of the 7-colored God Lotus. With the 7-colored light of the 7-colored God Lotus shrouding his divine sea, the external shock was easily smoothed out, so the old man's move was not very effective. Stubborn! The old man snorted. Seeing that the 10,000 Elephant Sea was approaching, he no longer hesitated. A layer of blood mist suddenly burst out from his body, and his speed greatly increased. It was obvious that he had activated a secret technique similar to the blood escape technique. His speed was much faster than Lu Yi's, so this sudden increase caught Lu Yi a little off guard. After a few breaths, the distance between them had reached an extremely dangerous level. The old man's magic powers surged wildly. He raised his hand and a whip-like magic weapon was summoned. The whip was lashed out and quickly lengthened, as if it was endless. It crossed the barrier of space and coiled toward Lu Yi like a giant python. Lu Yi tried several times, but he couldn't shake it off. Gritting his teeth, He took out the sword gourd and shot a sword light at the long whip across the air. The moment the sword light collided with the long whip, the sword light shattered. The sword light in the sword gourd had cost Lu Yi many magic weapons to nurture. The total value of those magic weapons was about 500 million spirit jades. He had used it 3 times in his battle with Zixian, and its power had been greatly reduced. This time, it could no longer be maintained and shattered. If the sword light had been at its peak, it would have been powerful enough to kill even an expert like the old man. No matter how strong he was only at Venerable Azure Days level. However, Lu Yi hadn't replenished his magic weapons before, so the sword light's power wasn't that great. Even so, it gave Lu Yi a chance to escape. The 10,000 Elephant Sea was right in front of him. He leaped into it, and his figure disappeared. The old man behind him was astonished. How is this possible? He hadn't been back in the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy for long, and he had inquired about Lu Yi from Yuan Sei and the others. Naturally, he had heard that Lu Yi had entered the 10,000 Elephant Sea under the protection of the Star Treasure. However, he had the Star Treasure's protection at that time, and it wasn't with Lu Yi at all. How did this kid enter the 10,000 Elephant Sea? The old man wasn't naive enough to think that Lu Yi was seeking death. Since he had done so, he must have a way to deal with it. A mistake. If he had known that Lu Yi was so capable, he would have taken him down quickly even if he had to use a forbidden technique. But now, Lu Yi had entered the sea and disappeared. Even if he was much stronger than Lu Yi, he couldn't go deep into the sea to catch him. This was bad. He had thought that this was a godsend opportunity, but instead of eating it, he had gotten himself into trouble. Standing at the edge of the 10,000 Elephant Sea, the old man's expression changed. At this moment, he sensed something and looked toward the depths of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Ri Zhao's aura was rapidly approaching. The old man's face was filled with unwillingness, but he had no choice but to turn around and flee. Ri Zhao, who was approaching at this time, was definitely Lu Ye's helper. It was very likely that he had the Star Treasure with him. Of course, he had to avoid him. In the distance, he turned his head back to take a look. The Soul Beauty 10,000 Elephant Sea was originally his home, but from today onwards, he would not be able to return unless he had the ability to fight against a supreme treasure in the starry sky. Did he regret it? Although it was just a spur of the moment, he would still attack Lu Yi even if he could go back in time, because such an opportunity was too rare. Lu Yi was alone outside without the protection of the Star Treasure, and he was much stronger than Lu Yi. Under such circumstances, who could resist the urge to attack? Just a moment after the old man left, 2 figures came to the edge of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It was Luan Xiao and Hua Xiai. During the 2 months that Lu Yi had been cultivating in seclusion, Luan Xiao had returned to the 10,000 Elephant Sea from Yuluo. In addition to her, there was a group of human tribe cultivators who had now moved to Purple Jade Island and renamed it Heart Island. When he was fleeing, Lu Yi sent a message to Luan Xiao, asking her to bring Hua Xiai and Xiao Gua to support him. If he guessed correctly, the true identity of the old man was a master who could confront Ma Bin. On their side, the only one who had the ability to take down such a master was Little Gourd. The old man had almost suppressed him on the spot with a sneak attack, and had even chased him all the way here. Of course, Lu Yi would not give up. End of chapter. Chapter 2038. Since Lu Yi led the cultivators of the 3 dimensions to roam the myriad ocean until now, he'd always carried out the principle of taking revenge for revenge. First, it was Bai Yu, then Zixian, and in the end, he'd even turned the entire myriad ocean upside down. In a place like this, any sign of weakness would only make others more aggressive. Now that the 3 Realms Island controlled the 10,000 Elephant Sea, as the master of the island, he was actually being hunted down. How could he tolerate this? Lu Yi didn't go too deep into the 10,000 Elephant Sea, so he sensed the old man's departure. After a while, he quickly emerged from the sea. Not far away, Luan Xiao's aura quickly approached, and Lu Yi hurriedly greeted her. Luan Xiao asked nervously, "What happened?" Hua Xiai also looked over with concern. "How are you?" With the current situation, they really couldn't figure out who would dare to hunt down Lu Yi, so they hurriedly rushed over after receiving the news. However, apart from Wuxia, Little Melon was usually only close to Lu Yi, so Wan Xiao brought Wuxia along. Lu Yi shook his head. "It's nothing serious." He grabbed Little Melon from Huaxi's arms and placed her on his shoulder, then turned and chased after the old man, his voice coming from afar. "Go back first. Don't leave the Three Realms Island before I return." The wheel of fortune had turned so quickly. Previously, it was the old man who chased after Lu Yi, but now it was Lu Ye's turn to chase after him. However, there was still a gap between their cultivations, so it was still somewhat difficult for Lu Yi to catch up. But it didn't matter. Lu Yi had basically confirmed the old man's identity. The old man could run, but he couldn't hide. Contrary to Lu Ye's expectations, the old man didn't return to any of the realms in the 10,000 Elephant Star system, but directly fled outside the system. This made Lu Yi somewhat resentful. Did the old man know he had caused trouble, so he ran away directly? If that was the case, he really didn't have a good way to deal with the old man. However, there was still a chance. When he was ambushed, he had used a backhand slash to injure the old man. The injury wasn't serious, just a simple flesh wound, but it was caused by the Fang blade, so there was still the power of Fang left in the wound. For someone as powerful as the old man, Ri Guang was completely capable of dissolving the power of Li, but it should take a few days. The opportunity was within these few days. As long as he stayed in a certain place, Lu Yi could follow the sense of the power of Li and secretly approach him. At that time, a golden light would shoot out, and no matter how high the old man's cultivation was, he would be instantly knocked down. While Lu Yi was chasing after the old man under the guidance of the Fang's power, Jiao Yan's expression changed drastically, and she quickly flew away. This sudden change was completely unexpected. It was originally just a simple meeting, but in the end, the person who was supposed to meet didn't come. Instead, she heard some incredible news. She was extremely annoyed. Right now, the situation in the Wanxiang Sea had stabilized. It could be said that this was the best situation. The three-world island didn't want to kill them all. The Wanxiang Galaxy had only lost control of the Wanxiang Sea. Although some people in the Wanxiang Galaxy felt aggrieved by this result, who asked them to be weaker than others? In the cultivation world, the strong were always respected. Moreover, based on the previous changes in the Wanxiang Sea, the three-world island didn't have any intention to harm them. The cultivators of the three-world island, led by Lu Yi, had been forced to resist. A few days ago, she learned that the oldest senior brother who had been traveling outside had returned to the Wanxiang Galaxy, so she sent a message to invite him to the Wanxiang Sea. On the one hand, she wanted to have a good talk with him, and on the other hand, she wanted him to see what the Wanxiang Sea was like now. She had no intention of resolving the grudge between the three-world island and the Wanxiang Galaxy because she was also a member of the Wanxiang Galaxy. However, she didn't want to see any more changes in the Wanxiang Sea. In order to maintain the status quo, the attitude of the senior brother who had returned was the key. She believed that as long as she reasoned with him, the senior brother wouldn't be unreasonable. After all, the three-world island was now willing to share half of the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce's profits. However, she never expected that her actions would cause another accident. Now, she received news that Lu Yi had left the Wanxiang Sea with the Starry Sky's supreme treasure, and his whereabouts were unknown. She was extremely anxious. She was afraid that Lu Yi would go to the realms of the Wanxiang Galaxy in a rage and start a massacre. If that happened, the matter would be out of control. The deaths of Yuan Du and the others were Lu Ye's counterattack, and he wasn't at fault. However, if Lu Yi really went to the realms of the Wanxiang Galaxy, she didn't know how to deal with it. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly sensed a powerful aura from the direction of the Purple Jade Island. It was also flying towards the Wanxiang Sea. The Purple Jade Island. It should be called the Heart Island now. Some time ago, many people from the hominid tribe had settled in, and the leader seemed to be called Su Yuqing. The one who was moving now should be this Ri Zhao. She didn't know what the relationship between Lu Yi and the hominid tribe was, but since the hominid tribe could settle in the Purple Jade Island, they must be very close. Otherwise, the three-world island wouldn't have handed over a top spiritual island to the hominid tribe. Su Yuqing was flying towards the Wanxiang Sea at this time. Obviously, she had also received some news and was going to support Lu Yi. The two Rizhao's spiritual wills met from afar, and they both understood each other's intentions. Soon, they saw each other outside the Wanxiang Sea. After looking at each other from afar, they retracted their gazes and flew side by side. Along the way, Jiao Yan kept sending messages to the outside world, asking Yuan Sei and the others about the situation in the various realms of the Wanxiang galaxy. Soon, she calmed down because Lu Yi hadn't appeared in any of the realms of the Wanxiang galaxy. This meant that the worst-case scenario hadn't happened. Lu Yi had obviously gone after that senior brother with the starry sky treasure. Yuan Sei and the others had also received that senior brother's message and knew about the trouble he had caused. They were all gathered in the Yuan realm and were anxious. They were hesitating whether to escape or not. This was undoubtedly the best time to escape. If Lu Yi wanted to make things difficult for them, none of them could stop him. However, the Wanxiang galaxy was their roots, their homeland. That senior brother who had caused trouble had to leave, but they didn't want to. As Rizhao, if he left the Wanxiang galaxy, he could only wander around and live under someone else's roof. This was something that no Rizhao was willing to face. Jiao Yan comforted him, but her heart was exhausted. On the other side, Lu Yi had been chasing for several days, but he hadn't even seen the old man's shadow. Through the feedback of the power of brightness, Lu Yi was sure that the old man wasn't moving at full speed. He was doing his best, but he was still slower than the old man. This was very frustrating. The huge difference in cultivation brought about a difference in speed that couldn't be solved. After a few days, the feedback of the power of brightness gradually weakened until it completely disappeared today. This undoubtedly meant that the old man had dissolved the remaining power of brightness in his wound. Although the quality of the Fang blade had improved greatly after he became a Rizhao, the old man wasn't an ordinary person. It had been a few days, so naturally, he could have dissolved the corrosion of the power of brightness. Lu Yi didn't give up. He chased for 2 more days in the direction where the power of brightness disappeared before he had no choice but to stop. Without the guidance of the power of brightness, he couldn't find the old man's location in the vast starry sky. This chase was a complete failure. Engraving this grudge in his heart, Lu Yi glanced at the depths of the starry sky before turning around and returning the way he came. During the sneak attack, the old man didn't intend to kill him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have directly suppressed him with the soul-subduing secret art. The old man probably wanted to capture him. Even so, Lu Yi suffered a big loss. His divine see's injury hadn't completely healed yet, and his head was still aching. Before he became a Rizhao, he didn't have a deep understanding of it. But since he became a Rizhao, he had suffered more than once in a fight with his divine sea. Those veteran Rizhao had unfathomable attainments in divine sea cultivation. A new Rizhao like him couldn't compete with them even if he had some natural advantages. He had to go to the soul race's ancestral land to cultivate the soul-subduing secret art as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would encounter this kind of thing again in the future. Lu Yi had a plan in mind. In fact, he already had such a plan, but he just didn't have time to act on it. But before that, it was impossible to take revenge on the old man, but it was always possible to get some interest. After a few more days of running, Lu Yi arrived near the first Yuan world. From afar, he saw a familiar figure standing there. He hurriedly flew over and asked in surprise, "Yuqing, why are you here?" The person standing there was Su Yuqing. Of course, he knew that Su Yuqing had come to the Wanxiang Sea. Now that the dwarfs had taken over the Heart Island, a large number of their people had settled in, attracting the attention of the entire Wanxiang Sea. However, the Purple Jade Island wasn't a trading island, so it wasn't very big. It couldn't accommodate too many cultivators, so if the cultivators of the Wanxiang Sea wanted to buy talismans, they had to go to the Three-World Island. The Three-World Island had cleared out an entire street, and more than 20 shops had been handed over to the dwarfs to sell talismans. But he didn't understand why Su Yuqing was here. "I heard that something happened to you, so I came to find you. Someone told me that you would come here and asked me to wait here." Su Yuqing looked Lu Yi up and down as she spoke. After confirming that he was fine, she relaxed and said, "Even if you have a starry sky treasure with you, don't take such risks next time. The one you're chasing should be at the peak of the Sunshine Realm. He's no match for a starry sky treasure, but with his cultivation he has many tricks up his sleeve. He might have a chance to take you down before you use the starry sky treasure." Feeling her deep concern, Lu Yi couldn't help but nod. "I know." He dared to chase after the dwarfs because of the feedback from the power of brightness. He could use it to determine the dwarf's location and ensure that he wouldn't be ambushed. If it weren't for this factor, he wouldn't have chased after the dwarfs alone with a starry sky treasure. A starry sky treasure was indeed powerful, but it wasn't invincible. End of chapter. Chapter 2039. Lu Yi asked again, "Who told you to wait here?" "It's me." A voice entered Lu Ye's ears. Immediately after, a figure rushed over from the Yuan realm. She had obviously sensed Lu Ye's aura and had come to meet him. Lu Yi took a look and understood. So it's senior sister Jiu Yan. He was not surprised that Jiu Yan would appear here. After such a huge incident, even Su Yuqing had heard about it. It was impossible that Jiu Yan had not heard about it. However, her coming out of the Yuan world at this time put Lu Yi in a bad mood. "Senior sister wants to stop me?" Lu Yi looked at her and asked. Jiu Yan sighed. "In the end, I'm Vientiane Hikari. If she could, she wouldn't have interfered in this matter. However, Vientiane Hikari's status was there, so she couldn't ignore it. The feeling of being caught in the middle was really suffocating. She could feel the hidden killing intent in Lu Ye's eyes. Obviously, the previous encounter had angered him. If she were in his shoes, Jiu Yan felt that she wouldn't let it go either. Although she didn't know the details of the incident, Lu Yi, a newly promoted Rizhao, was ambushed by a powerhouse like that senior brother. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, he must have paid a huge price. It could even be said that he narrowly escaped death. For any cultivator, this was an irreconcilable grudge. Now that senior brother had escaped, Lu Yi could only vent his anger on others. That was why he came to the Yuan realm. Jiu Yan wasn't worried that she would be implicated because she knew that Lu Yi was a person who knew how to repay kindness. Back then she had helped Lu Yi and the Three Realms Island. After Lu Yi took control of the Wanxiang Sea, he handed over the Wanxiang Island to her to manage. This was to repay the favor. However, she didn't know if her reputation was big enough to help the galaxy resolve this disaster. Of course, she knew that standing here would make things difficult for Lu Yi, but she had to stand up. Although she didn't have a deep relationship with the Rizhao of the Yuan realm, this was a position determined by her birth. Lu Yi looked straight at Jiu Yan. After a long while, he said, "That's Changfeng?" Jiu Yan nodded. "Yes, senior brother Changfeng." Lu Yi thought to himself that it was indeed this old man. He had thought that the old man looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Previously, when he visited Ma Bin and chatted with him, Ma Bin had mentioned Changfeng. The Wanxiang galaxy's environment was blessed by the heavens. Over the years, there had been more sunshine than just the people he had met. Some of them had traveled outside, but most of them had disappeared without a trace for many years. Even the Wanxiang galaxy was not sure if they were still alive, and if they were, where they were. Only Changfeng could send back some news from time to time because he had been staying in the Shura field all this time. Ma Bin's injury was directly related to this Changfeng. When the Shura field was closed, it was he who led a few Rizhao to besiege Ma Bin. After paying a huge price, Ma Bin's Dao Foundation was damaged. Lu Yi had indeed seen Changfeng before, because when he was with Nan Lian, Changfeng had run over to talk to Nan Lian for a while before leaving. However, when Lu Yi was running away, he was focused on saving his own life and did not have time to think about it. Ma Bin had specially reminded Lu Yi to be careful of Changfeng, because in terms of cultivation, Changfeng was on par with Ma Bin. They were both at the peak of the Sunshine Realm, but cultivation was cultivation. If they really fought, Changfeng would not be Ma Bin's opponent. When the news of the Wanxiang Sea spread, Changfeng heard about it and returned to the Wanxiang galaxy to investigate the situation. A few days ago, Jiao Yin received news of Chang Feng's return and invited him to the Wanxiang Island. On the way, they met Lu Yi, who was busy fighting with his doppelganger, and ambushed him. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have invited senior brother Chang Feng to the island of versatility. Junior brother Lu, this is all my fault." Lu Yi raised his hand to stop her. "Chang Feng is Chang Feng, it has nothing to do with senior sister." Jiao Yin sighed. "Can't you just let them go? They have been very obedient recently, and this was senior brother Chang Feng's sudden decision. They had no idea." Lu Yi said indifferently, "They are obedient because they know they don't have the power to resist. If they have the chance to resist one day, will they still be obedient? I didn't make things difficult for them back then because of senior sister, but this time, I hope senior sister won't stop me." This matter had nothing to do with those from the Yuan realm, but who told Chang Feng to run away? Chang Feng, the instigator, did not care about their lives, so why should she care? Su Yuqing, who had been standing next to Lu Yi, hadn't said a word. But now, she was glaring at Jiao Yin with her soul force. Her meaning was clear. If Jiao Yin tried to stop Lu Yi, she'd have to face her. Jiao Yin sensed it and said in a low voice, "Junior brother, don't you want the fire gourd? I can make the decision to make Yuan say hand over the fire gourd." Lu Yi had mentioned this to her before, and she clearly remembered it. A treasure-grade world-suppressing treasure in exchange for the lives of a few Sunshine Realm cultivators was a very suitable trade. Lu Yi would not lose out. Given the current situation, it was impossible for Yuan Sei to not hand over the fire gourd. Lu Yi was unmoved. "Take care of those people, and the fire gourd will still be mine." Before Jiao Yin could say anything, Lu Yi continued, "Senior sister, I know what you're thinking, but this time it's different. Chang Feng was the culprit who damaged Ma Bin's Dao Foundation and wanted to harm Lu Yi. Now that Chang Feng had run away, Lu Yi had to let him know the consequences of running away. Jiao Yin felt helpless when she sensed Lu Ye's resolute attitude. Lu Yi had always respected her, and even her words were not of any use. It was likely that the few people in the Yuan realm were really going to meet with misfortune. She did not care about the others, but she still had some friendship with Mu Qing. After a moment of silence, Jiao Yin seemed to have made a decision. She looked up and looked at Lu Yi. "Senior sister owes you one." As her voice fell, the hazy halo that had been shrouding her face slowly dispersed, and a beautiful face appeared in front of Lu Ye's eyes. All this time, Lu Yi had never seen Jiao Yan's real face. Whether it was Xingxiu or Yueyao, Jiao Yan's face was always shrouded in a layer of hazy halo when they met, and he could not see her face clearly. Lu Yi had never understood why. He even guessed that Jiao Yan's face was damaged, and that was why she covered it up and did not show it to others. It was only at this moment that he suddenly realized. Looking at the face that she had seen once but had been searching for many years without success, even Lu Yi, who had weathered many storms, couldn't help but be stunned. He could not believe his eyes. No matter what, he did not expect this face to be hidden under the hazy halo. His mind was shaken, and he did not know what to say for a moment. Su Yuqing looked at him in astonishment. She did not know why his state of mind had suddenly fluctuated so much. It was obvious that he had encountered something extremely shocking. She then looked at Jiao Yin, only to see that the famous Wanxiang Hikari's face was a little rosy, and he was slightly avoiding Lu Ye's gaze. This shy and embarrassed expression, "There's something wrong." Su Yuqing's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly, and she discreetly raised her hand to pinch Lu Yi. Jiao Yin saw her little action and was shocked. She could not help but look at Su Yuqing. She knew that Lu Yi had a good relationship with the Xiaoma tribe. Su Yuqing was the Xiaoma tribe's Rizhao. After hearing the news, she immediately left the Wanxiang Sea to look for Lu Yi. Therefore, they should have a good relationship. But now, it seemed that their relationship was not only good, but this intimate action, there was something wrong. If it was just an ordinary relationship, why would she do this? The two Peak Sunshine Realm cultivators suddenly looked at each other. The moment their eyes met, they both understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Lu Yi, who had been absent-minded because she had seen Jiao Yan's true face, suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. For some reason, she secretly rejoiced that Wuxia was not here. If Wuxia was here, then this damn place would really become an Azura's battlefield. Cold sweat dripped down his back. His murderous intent disappeared without a trace when Jiao Yan's true appearance was revealed. All that was left was a head full of doubts. If Su Yuqing was not here, he would have a lot of questions, but with Su Yuqing by his side, it was not easy for him to ask. The atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Su Yuqing said gently, "Louis, did you hear Taoist Jiao Yan's words? Give me an answer. Taoist Jiao Yan is waiting." Louis could not help but glance at Jiao Yan again. He was sure that he did not see wrongly. He would never forget that face no matter what. He suppressed the many questions in his heart and said, "Since senior sister has already said so, I will take note of their lives for now." As for the fire gourd, Jiao Yan said, "Senior brother Changfeng has caused trouble. Yuan Sei also knows that he can't keep this treasure. He will make the right choice." Lu Yi nodded. "Then I will trouble senior sister." Lu Yi took one last deep look at Jiao Yan and said to Su Yuqing, "Let's go." Today's matter gave Lu Yi a headache. He had to hurry back to the three-world island to calm down. Jiao Yan quickly flew away with Su Yuqing. Long after they had left, Jiao Yan sighed and returned to the Yuan realm. If possible, she would not reveal her true appearance in front of Lu Yi. Because of some mistakes she made in the past, she could not face Lu Yi. Therefore, she had never let Lu Yi see her true appearance. But today, Lu Yi was stubborn, so she had no choice but to use this method. Fortunately, she managed to preserve the few sunshine in the local star system. But from now on, Jiao Yan had a headache just thinking about it. She also felt that she had let Chu Shin down. In the starry skies, Lu Yi and Su Yuqing walked side by side. He had already mentally prepared himself for what Su Yuqing would ask him. With a character like her, it was impossible for her not to have seen through all the clues, so Lu Yi did not intend to hide anything. But what surprised Lu Yi was that Su Yuqing did not ask anything about Jiao Yan along the way. She even kept silent. This made Lu Yi feel guilty. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.